What's up, guys? This podcast is brought to you by Menulog, and we got this feed from Dalmani Cafe in Rosebery. Took 20 minutes to arrive. Menulog is on one of the greatest bounce back all time, who is currently, as I said, one of the greatest bounce backs, better browsing experience, enhanced courier features like tracking and courier chat, and very recently, automatic refunds for missing items. Now, my guest, I have to introduce him for our younger audience that may not know him. It is Mike Whitney. He is an Australian Test cricket player. New South Wales, obviously, Test cricket player. He won, I think, four Sheffield Shields. The host for Who Dares Wins. It is one of the best guests we've ever had, guys. Trust me, you are going to absolutely love this guest. Not only is he a great cricket player, but also he had a huge hand in getting the Rabbitohs back into the competition. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this podcast. The stories, Shane Warne, Brian Lara, you name it, some of the craziest stories you've ever heard. I hope you guys enjoyed.
Just a bloke in a bar.
This episode is brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. Do you look like this person? Then you need a bit of Grumpy Coffee. Head to grumpycoffee.com.au. We've got multiple blends. It's a premium coffee, a beautiful coffee. We've got pods, we've got whole bean, we've got ground, everything at grumpycoffee.com.au. And also Bloke Undies, premium undies, now available at bloke.shop. But let's get straight into it. We've got the great Mike Whitney on the show. How you going, brother?
I want to say, Dylan, first, on the Grumpy Coffee, on the back, it says very grumpy, dark blend.
Yes.
So if you wake up and you're really struggling, that's the one you need.
Absolutely.
Coffee.
So we got everyday grumpy, just for the normal grumpy people. And then if you're a noted very grumpy person, we've actually haven't brought it out yet, but we've got one more blend. We've got two more blends. One's called Kinda Grumpy, and that's decaf. That's decaf. And then we got one that it's not called anything grumpy. It's just, you know, when you slam a keyboard and all the different things come up.
Yeah.
And so that's what it is, the name of it. And it's the colour is red as well. So
I love the face on the front, and I never look like that.
Mate, funnily enough, and this is all true. So please don't come for me, but this is actually inspired by my wife. And it was on a European trip. We went, and it was the first time we didn't have our... we essentially didn't have our usual daily routine. So we'd been, ever since we'd met, we'd been inseparable. So she was either at my house or I was at her house. So you always had your daily routine, get up, you have your coffee. Anyway, so we went to Europe a few years into our relationship for 6 weeks. And that was the first time she didn't have her daily routine, didn't have her coffee. We had literally days locked in tours that we'd been talking about for years in Versailles. And she would literally say, I'm not going anywhere. I'll miss the tour until I have my coffee. And I was like, that's the name. So that's why it's called Grumpy Coffee.
Does she get a royalty out of that?
She gets bloody all the royalties. She's my wife.
Of course.
Mate, how you going? How you going after a summer of cricket? How good has it been?
Oh, man. That test series was something special from day one. Look, huge that we won, but you'd expect to win on your home turf. The thing that I'll always remember about that is that most of those wickets had a little bit in it for the fast bowlers. Sydney, my son Fergus rang me from Western Australia during the Sydney test, said, would you like to have a bowl on this Sydney wicket? I went... Today, with my two replaced knees off 2 steps. He only had to hit that rope and it was doing everything. But look, they were great test matches. They were all really good games. But the Melbourne test.
Crazy.
At the end of day 3, I looked at myself. I had cobwebs growing on me. I hadn't moved out of the chair for 3 days. I thought, I better get up and go to the toilet. I haven't been to the toilet for 3 days. I opened the fridge up. There was nothing in that. I was just so... Look, people said to me after the Boxing Day test, there was a lot of ups and downs in it. We, the cricketers, we call that exertion of pressure, absorbing it. You played high-level sport, and then reapplying that to the opposition. That went on in that game for 5 days, and it wasn't until the last session, the last hour, that we took 7 for 42, I think, and cracked them open and won the game. That's just amazing test cricket over 5 days, and the wicket changing, and the bowlers just had it a little bit in their favour, which for me I loved. The batters didn't, and if you scored runs on any of those wickets, you really batted really, really well.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in Melbourne was the arrival of the young Sam Constas, which, mate, look, I've been watching cricket for a long time now, Dan, and I had my hand, about 5 times I went, no! Looking through my fingers, did he really do that?
Yeah, wow.
Now, I know Sam. I've met him a few times through the New South Wales setup. He's a lovely boy, big, tall kid.
Yeah.
But in discussing what he did in that first innings, the bravery
Oh, mate.
to want to take that on, and then the skill to do it against Jasprit Bumrah, who at this moment is the premier bowler in the world. He was absolutely on fire.
Yeah.
And he created, I call it creation of chaos. There's very few cricketers that can go out there and create chaos. Viv Richards could in any situation. You might be 2 for 20, the West Indies, and he'd just come out and just reverse it straight away. He put chaos into them that morning to the point where Kohli walked up and dropped the shoulder.
Crazy.
Which I couldn't believe that I saw that.
Yeah.
And they showed a wide shot of that. Kohli was 20 metres away
Mate.
and had 3 acres to walk away.
Yeah.
Beeline straight to him, dropped the shoulder in, and then turned around and looked at Sam as much as to say, why did you do that?
Yeah. Craziness.
Kohli's better than that. Man, he's a goat.
Yeah.
One of the greatest of all time. That's how much he got into him.
Yeah.
Kohli should have walked past and said, you disrespectful little prick, you know, this is Bumrah, or something like that's what I thought would have happened.
Yeah.
But to get him to a point
Physical.
where he's absolutely, and on the cricket field, then you can't touch anybody.
Yeah.
If you pat someone on the back, well played, mate. The umpires will go, that's cool. If you touch someone, touch them, you can get nailed big time. For that, and he got fined, what, a quarter of his salary. He's got that in his Ferrari locker in the car.
Mate, he had it in his pockets.
Mate,
That's why his
like,
pockets
it
were
was
empty in the
just
next test.
Just ridiculous. But they said he was fined under the ICC rules. But the look was bad, but the basis was Sam Constas got under his skin and under their skin so much in that opening stanza that he actually lost control.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember speaking to some cricket fans, and I said, like, in rugby league, like, if Constas punched him, like knocked him out, you would blame Kohli. And they were sitting there going, as cricket fans, they're like, what are you talking about, punch on? I said, but Kohli got physical because what we were talking about in the podcast, actually, we were talking about, so, you know, in the next test, that Constas, so Usman was time wasting because it was later than day.
Yeah.
Constas then chirped at Bumrah, or Bumrah chirped at him, or
that's
whatever.
right. And they had a
and they all
little
charged him.
Yep.
And then Andrew
then Usman
McDonald
got out.
Yep.
And they all charged.
They charged him.
That's right.
And then Andrew McDonald came out and said, you know, I just checked on Constas, and then the Indian coach came out and said that it was soft. And I said, hang on a sec. That charge doesn't happen in a vacuum. The last test, they literally got physical with Constas.
That's right.
So to pretend that Constas is being soft because they charged him.
That's right.
It didn't. That's not the only thing that happened.
That's right.
They literally shoulder charged him the test before.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying on my podcast. And they kind of laughed at me. I said, "What if when they were charging him, Constas threw a punch?
Yeah.
Because he's already been shoulder charged before. I know that's dramatic, but it's like it's already got physical, and they're charging the 19-year-old or whatever."
What about if he had have actually dropped the gloves and the bat in Melbourne and clipped Kohli with a short left hook?
Yeah.
Mate, he's barred.
It's over.
It made barred. I don't know for how long, but he would be like really, barred.
Yeah.
Where Virat can do that.
Yeah.
And look, see, the other thing about Virat is he knows his position in cricket.
Yeah,
he knows he's up the top of the tree and a bit of the game. But look, the other fascinating side of that series to me was, you know, Ravi Chandran Ashwin went home. Mate, he is a great spin bowler. That guy is a legend and has made 4 or 5 test centuries. He left halfway through the tour. Rohit Sharma's probably gone, their captain. You probably won't see him in test cricket. He may play white ball cricket again. So they've lost and were beaten out here and lost 2 of their greatest players because of the summary of what happened over the test series, and that fascinates me a lot.
Yeah.
They're going to find another Rohit. Mind you, they've got 50 million kids playing cricket over there, and they're opening up clinics all around India.
Yeah.
And in my time, most of those guys came from quite wealthy families or were really well educated and stuff like that. Otherwise, you didn't get a go. Now they've got guys, you know those grounds you're seeing, there's 50 games going on out on the ground. They actually got scouts walking around those games.
Yeah,
that the kids are playing afternoons and going, oh, we watched you bowl leg spin the last couple of days, come and have a trundle in the nets, and they're discovering these kids.
Yeah, well,
and girls as well.
Yeah.
They've got the biggest pool.
1 billion. 1 billion people in their country.
The thing about it, Dan, I've been there 20 times. If you talk to a 7-year-old about the cricket, he knows all the shit.
Yeah, wow.
And then if you talk to his grandmother about it, she knows all the shit about cricket.
Yeah, wow.
They reckon when Sachin was playing, when Tendulkar got 100 in a test match, the gross domestic product of India kicked up for a couple of days because Sachin, we won.
No
and Sachin
way.
got 100, and they went out and bought a few things. So for the next week, it went ooh, and then it went back to normal.
Yep.
Again. Yeah, how can you have that much influence?
That's incredible. I know, now, this is going to sound a little bit silly, and I know it's on a way smaller scale, but I would love someone much smarter than me to study the impact of the Penrith Panthers on the economics of Penrith and Western Sydney.
Massive, man.
Surely that's
Massive.
increased values out there by a
Massive.
dramatic amount.
Mate, what they've done, and I'm a die-hard Rabbitohs, but you got to look at what they've done, and that takes me back to when I was a kid, and I think, I don't know, Matty might know a bit more. St George won 10 or 11 in a row, and then Souths kicked on and played in the next 5 grand finals. We won 4 out of the 5. That's right. But I didn't think I'd ever see anybody in this day and age win 2, 3, 4. Like, wow.
with the salary cap and everything as well.
And then they lose players to lose, and then some other little wonderkin comes up through the system. You go, who's this dude? And they have a blinder.
Yeah, he's like even better nearly. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Is that because of Gus and he setting up that system out there? Or?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like whether it's a mixture, because like, you know, I've actually spoken about this with my friends Tom and Eddie on our Thursday podcast, because it was more just, you know, they were poking fun at the Broncos and how they haven't been successful or whatever. But it's a really interesting.
See, the Bronx had that, but didn't they?
But that's the thing. It's a really interesting discussion, because if the ingredient is a large base of players, like, so for example, Brisbane have this huge base, but then you would look at the clubs that have large bases and you would assume they've been dominant for 20 years, and they haven't. Like, for example, the Penrith Panthers have had a large base for a very long time.
Yeah.
They haven't topped it. The most dominant of the early 2000s and 2020 are probably Melbourne and Roosters, who have the smallest base.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and then you look at it and you go, so which one is it? Is it the people with big base
or small base?
There's too many options actually hurt you? And I think it's just systems. I think systems, you can have a tiny base, but if you've got really good systems, you'll be dominant. You look at the Melbourne Storm, literally no base. They basically have got to get the dregs of other systems.
Yeah.
I mean, it's changed a little bit now because of how dominant they were, but initially they had to get the rejects from up in Queensland. And then Penrith come along and they've got this huge base and a good system, and all of a sudden you're going, well, it's unstoppable.
There was that group of players that all came through together, didn't they? All played as kids, you know, Cleary and Luai and all these other blokes that played, where you don't even have to look, do you?
Yeah.
And then, like I said before, then they lose some of those guys and some new kid comes up and he's a genius as well.
You know what, it actually, now that I think of it, it reminds me a little bit of when the 8 in a row for Queensland, because Billy Slater, because Billy Slater, Cam Smith, and Cooper Cronk had played since they were reserve grade.
Yeah.
Anytime they would get into Origin, they'd had this system just on lock. It was they just knew.
Yeah.
And then what they would do is introduce other people into that system, like JT and all that. And he
JT.
and so
come and play with us, JT.
Mate,
we'll really
incredible.
teach you how to play.
Incredible.
How good was he? Freakish, mate. Cameron Smith, man. That group of Queensland players was
never
just
again.
ridiculous.
Surely
mate,
never again.
Ridiculous.
It can't. It just can't. It just.
Every year we'd run out and go, hope we win one.
Oh, mate. It just can't. It's just incredible. But, mate, the summer of cricket, I'd love to get your thoughts, especially, you know, you've played for your country for cricket and obviously a very successful Shield cricket career as well. This new age Australian side, you know, there's a lot of, like anything, it gets politicised and, they're soft, they're new age this. But a lot of old school people go, back in my day we did this. But they've been so successful with what they've got. I'd love to get your thoughts on the Paddy Cummins new age Australian side.
I love it. I love the fact that, you know, there's been very few Australian fast bowlers that have captained Australian sides around the world, really. You could probably count them on both hands. And that was because in the early days of cricket, the professionals, or the amateurs, sorry, were the batsmen. They were the really, Sir John Smiths, and just went and played and supported the game. The professionals were the bowlers, and these were the blokes that came from down the coal mines like Harold Larwood and that, and were supposedly not smart enough to captain the side. And that's why we've never had any fast bowling captains.
No way.
Paddy's turned that round. A number of guys turned that round over there. Look, I love Pat. He's such a great bowler. He really understands all his players as well, and they follow him because he'll pick the ball up when there's a real emergency on and say, right, roll the sleeves up.
Bloody even the bat these days sometimes
Unbelievable.
too.
His batting has come along. Some of those innings he's played over the last couple of years have been absolutely crucial. If he gets out for less than 10, we lose some games.
Yeah.
So he leads up the front. He waves the flag. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's very passionate. And he's always been, I remember interviewing Patrick when he was like 19 and he sort of played a few and then he got injured and was out for a while. But always been able to converse and never had a drama with it. Steve Smith is really quiet and almost introvert. Steve Waugh, and I've known Stephen for 40 years, he's almost an introvert, Stephen. And when they were made captain, they had to force themselves to, to learn how to do it, but you've got to get out there and talk.
Yeah.
You're the captain. Paddy's been really good at that. And I think also the team that he's had around him has been a pretty good team. I mean, that fast bowling trio, all from New South Wales, and Nathan Lyon, all from New South Wales. It's a rarity to get three guns like that. And then the big Hoff, Josh Hazelwood gets injured and we bring in Scotty Boland. Well, he's not a bad number 4. And then you got other blokes like, Richardson's just got injured, but Michael Neser up in Queensland, mate, I'd pick him almost any any game I'd play Michael Neser. What a cricketer he is. So I think they all follow Pat. Times have changed. It is the new age. The drinking, smoking and partying that happened in my era and before that is long gone.
Yeah.
They get paid big money now, Dan, and you can't, and social media's around. So they really have to be careful what they do, where they go and who they hang out with.
Yep.
But I love it. I love the fresh generation. I love Steve Smith. What can I even say about him? Mate, from the moment I met him, and let's not forget he got picked as a number 6 bowling leg spin. And I've always said to him when I said, keep bowling this stuff, and then the last sort of 5 years he just, just laughs at that. But I can't not sit down and watch him bat. It's so unusual, his mannerisms.
Yeah, it's strange, especially as a casual cricket fan as myself. It's very strange to watch.
He's the only batsman that I've ever seen that can look out of shape in his upswing, and then right when he hits the ball, it's absolutely perfect, and then he goes out of shape again. Now, we were taught you've got to be in shape, perfect, in shape.
Yeah.
He can be either one out of shape, one in shape. The follow-through can be in shape, but the lift is out of shape. The range of shots that he has, the area that he can cover, his pinpointing of gaps, and then he goes straight through the gap. Then they move the dude there, then he goes through that gap. It's ridiculous. And then there's been these things, I can't play T20 cricket or one-day cricket anymore, and he comes out the other night and scores 100 for the Sixers, and I watched it. Some of the shots, he doesn't look like he's there. And then, poof, it's 6. And I go, shit, he didn't look like he was going to get there and time that.
Yeah.
And then it pops it over the rope. He's and his brain. And this is the thing I love. When he's at the crease and he's fidgeting and he bangs the bat a couple of times and then he looks up and then he boom, boom, and then he's up. At that moment, you could drop a nuclear bomb outside the ground and he would not hear it. He is so locked on to the head of a pinpoint. And then those extravagant leaves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you're watching, this is what I keep saying to people, this guy's only got a limited time to play. You have to watch him play. You must see how he dissects the bowling. and then dissects the field. And then they'll make a change to put pressure on him, and I can see him doing the calculations, the angles, the mathematical angles, where we are, what part of the game it is, how many am I, what's the wicket doing, what's the scoreboard, how much time have we got, how many overs left. Every ball, boom,
Yeah.
and he'll press this and come out with an answer, and that might be to step across further or go out of his crease or play this.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm just so I can't not watch him play.
Yeah,
He's
wow.
fascinating.
Wow.
So this is all part of the new age sort of style of cricketer. Then you got people like Marnus. Mate, he's off chops, Marnus. And just, again, a nuffy. I mean, Marnus gets in front of the mirror and scores 100 at night time before he goes to bed. I mean, they are addicted to the game like a drug. So I think it's very refreshing the way Pat leads his team and they play and they're winners and we're in a good position. And when your national side's going well, you know, it encourages a lot of people. So you think the Shield competition's quite buoyant, the BBL's really buoyant.
Yeah.
One day cricket's very buoyant. We're going all right here in Australia because of that.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, even me as a rugby league tragic, over the last few years I've been trying to get into cricket because obviously summer there's no, rugby league on. And this last test was truly the test that hooked me. Like the England test a couple of years ago with the run out where Bairstow, I think, went out of his crease or whatever. Like, I was intrigued more with the drama with that. As drama, it's, the Poms are whinging again, how good, moral victories.
He'd done that about 15 times himself?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
There's miles of footage
it's
of him doing that.
Insane.
Typical
it's insane.
Pom. Yeah.
Mate, Poms, love a whinge, moral victories, all that stuff. Anyway, so this test, though, was the first test in my life as a person that never played cricket growing up. Like, I played soccer growing up. I didn't go near a cricket, just pitch it, whatever. This test, though, was a test I couldn't look away.
Yeah.
Like, I every time I would be like, all right, I better go do something, I'd be like, but what if something happens? But what if something happens? I'd never really felt that before with cricket. Yeah. And that test in Melbourne, I was explaining to the boys who, Maddie loves cricket, Timmy, my co-host, and Hammy, they love cricket. As the test in Melbourne, I was like, cricket is a sport, as a newbie to it, no other sport can offer that. No. Like, no other sport can give you 5 days of, by the 5th day, the tensions have risen so high that you just cannot believe that it's almost like you're redlining for the last 2 days or so. Whereas a footy match, you might get 10 or 20 minutes of that.
Yeah.
With cricket, you're getting a whole day of going, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And so that's what's so unique about Test cricket from a newbie's perspective. And that's what I loved about this whole series. So I'm in now. I'll watch all the cricket. I'll
imagine.
Yeah, and also what I like about it as well, it's almost a perfect summer sport. If you love sport in summer, because you can put on the back the TV in the background.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to watch every single second.
Oh, there's a wicket.
And then
Turn
you
it
can.
on. That's right.
And so it's just in the background. You can mingle with the family. You can enjoy time with your kids and all that kind of stuff. Whereas rugby league, you got to be watching it every single second. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. Now, I want to. You spoke a bit about Constance, but another guy. It's like anything in life. We love to. Polarizing, first we love him and then he doesn't have a good
Nick Kyrgios.
Yeah, and then we hate him. But with
what about when Nick said the other day, tennis needs me, man, it's been boring. You just got to love him, haven't you?
Right. I think with Kyrgios, if you just accept that he's just happy doing that, not everyone has to be, for example, Steve Smith.
Mate, seriously, Dan, I used to think he was a wanker.
Yeah, I was the same. I was like, I don't know how I can't cop it.
And now I watch him and I go, oh man, I love
enjoy the ride.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the ride.
Absolutely.
Mate, years ago, I was like, what? Come on, mate. Because you know what I was doing? I was projecting how I would be.
That's exactly
if
right.
I would be in his situation. I would, training all the time. Focus. And then I said, you know what? Maybe he doesn't want to do that.
That's his gig. That's it.
So why not just sit back, enjoy it?
Yep. Him and the Joker playing together they were bagging each other a couple of years. Yeah, this, and now they're together having fun. Beautiful
great
thing.
And his commentary's good too. His commentary's great. Yeah. But yeah, to Constance, funnily enough, is there anyone back in your day? Because we always try to remember back in the day as oh mate, everyone was respectful. Everyone was to your elders, no matter what you say, yes sir, no sir. Mate, rogues have been around forever. Was there anyone back in your day that was similar with Constance, where as a teenager they were just absolutely in your face, whatever, on the cricket pitch at least? Because I know he's a different bloke off the cricket pitch.
Yeah, probably a couple. I mean, when Greggy Matthews arrived, no one really understood what Greg was talking about. It was this, hey man, wow, wipe out. And it was very, when I turned up, I think I sent a few shockwaves through because I wanted to play rugby league. So I came from this rugby league background.
Culture as well.
Yeah, and a full-on league culture out where I live, mate. If you didn't barrack for South, you got a corked arm and a corked leg every morning on the way to school. But I sort of took a bit of that rugby league aggro. I ended up in the second row. I loved tackling. I loved taking the ball. I took that into cricket a little bit and actually asked a few people out the back after the game, like Kepler. What about my first game against Queensland? Kepler Vessels was playing, and we played in Brisbane. This was a return match. And I just didn't like the look of him. Kepler, South African, played in England. He's trying to get a game for us now and played World Series. So we played in Sydney, got a few runs too, and we'd had this thing going all day and finally got out. And I give him a gobful and he spat back and I said, I'll see you after the game. And then Steve Small, who was our opening batsman, run up to me and said, I just heard what you said. You obviously don't know he was the South African Junior Golden Gloves boxing champion. And I went, nah. After the game, we bowled all day. He's come in the dressing room and he was cut and he was a full-on competitor and I didn't know this. He went, where are you? I've got 2 cold beers there. He went, are we going? And I went, he said, typical Australian, full of wind and piss. Big mouth out on the ground, but come in here. I said, Keps. We were told never to take it off the field. He said, I agree with that. Give me the ball. I thought, far out. He would have gone boom, 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 and just knocked me out. So, yeah, I think I settled because I really wanted to play and there were certain rules and regulations back in those days. Like, DK Lilly, Greg Chappell and Rod Marsh were running the show.
Yep.
And if you didn't fall into line, it was really difficult to get a game. So I would say, Greg Matthews was probably the biggest one that came out and just shocked everybody, dancing on the field. He used to play his guitar. And no one had ever seen that. It was very, very unusual. Merv Hughes as well. Merv's just Merv. I mean, Merv would fart in front of Bay 13 loudly and turn around and say to them, did you hear that? I mean, and his things down at Bay 13, real character. Merv would do things like this on tour. Bob Simpson would say when we'd arrive at somewhere, the bus is leaving at 9:30 in the morning, blah, 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 9:30 in the morning, X, Y, and Z. Better be on the bus at 9:30. Any questions? Merv would throw his hand up. Simo, what time's the bus leaving in the morning?
Just a pest.
He was the only one that could get away with it.
Yeah, okay.
Anybody else, Bob would crucify you. He'd just go like that. 9:30. So Merv was very different.
Yeah.
Most of the other guys, but look, Alan Border, who I really love playing against, he was very much in that cricket.
Yeah, okay.
Australian cricket board.
Yep.
Captain. And when you're the captain, mate, it's a tough job, bro.
Oh.
They say Prime Minister of Australia, captain of the Australian cricket team.
Yeah,
and Alan,
absolutely.
I don't think Alan liked a lot of the media and stuff like that, so Bobby Simpson took a lot of that over. But no, if you said to me, name one player, it'd be Greg Matthews.
Yeah, okay.
He shocked them.
Yeah, wow.
He was the Sam Constas back in the early 80s. And when Mo played for Australia, they just couldn't believe what was on the field. He was just so different and a very, very good player.
Yeah. Do you think with Constas, do you think it's one of those situations where young fella, like, I'm sure he'll chill a little bit. I'm sure he was told to do I'm sure he wasn't told to take selfies in the crowd while the game was still going, but like to ruffle the feathers of the Indian side, like I'm sure he's not going to come out every game and play like that. I'd assume anyway. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's his job,
I'd never seen anything like that. I've got to be honest with you.
Well, he missed 2 ramp shots and then went for a third one.
And when, I would think you missed the first two.
You just
put
go,
it away.
what? Yep.
Put it away. It's a bit risky, and you're facing Bumrah, who's just like
It's been carnage with Boomer. He's absolutely dominated us until that
play
point.
that shot 3 times.
Yeah.
Like I said, mate, the bravery to want to do that, then the skill level to be able to do it. So, yeah, he really ruffled their feathers. And I don't think that he would have gone out there with the intention of really ruffling their feathers. He's 19 years of, I'm going to play a ram shot.
Yeah, okay.
If he bounces me, I'll hook him. And let's hope he pitches up, I'm going to drive him. This is just the way the young modern cricketer. Have a look at Jaswal, their young opening batter. He's the same. They're going to come out in Test cricket. Now that all these young blokes have seen Sam Constas do that,
so true.
they'll want to say, my first game, I want to play a ramp and a this and a that. And mate, it was huge. I mean,
I wonder how much. Yeah, I wonder how much it's almost going to be like the Benji step or something like that. How many young kids are going to be ramp shotting?
The Benji step,
remember
it well.
Oh,
man.
mate.
The first time he leapt into the air and then hit the ground and went 90 degrees, unbelievable.
Crazy.
But yeah, that is a moment that they will talk about in cricket. I played in 2 Boxing Day tests. To be on the field on the first day with 90,000 people there,
the whole country,
and when you're in the middle, it's hard to hear because the noise is coming and concentrating right in the middle of the ground.
Yeah.
I remember Alan Border being this far away from me one day saying, when you're down at fine leg, and I'm really locking onto him because I couldn't hear him.
Yeah, wow.
Watch me all of the time.
Yeah.
So then you'd have guys behind saying, can I get an autograph? And I go, mate, I'm fielding in a one-dayer against the West Indies and Gordon Greenwich and Viv are in, and I don't want to miss a run.
Yeah.
You wanker. Like, really amazing. For him to do that, I still can't get over it.
Yeah, wow.
It was that unbelievable.
Because you know the enormity of it. You've been in the boxing test, the pressure.
I went like this, and I looked at myself like this. Did he really do that? And just the nonchalance about it, which I'm sure he's not. I mean, again, I've got to say, the skill level involved in playing that shot against someone like Bumrah, who's bowling 135, 140 clicks, taking it in at will, taking it away at will. He's that good. To do that, I mean, that's freakish.
Yeah, wow.
And this is the follow-on from T20 cricket. They want to play that way now. They want to come out, be exciting, get a run of ball.
That's something I'd love to know with because there's a split kind of opinion. The split opinion is our batting standard has reduced.
Yeah.
And then the other opinion is no, the pitch was just doing a lot and our bowlers are just really good. Where do you kind of land on that, do you think?
That test series, I hadn't seen as much in the wickets. The Sydney wicket, I would have had a trundle on that myself at 65 years of age with me dodgy knee.
Yeah, okay.
Just hit that rope, it would have done something. And people have said to me, if Bumrah had played that last afternoon where we were batting, we were 4 for 50. We could have been 5 or 6 for 50 if he was bowling. And if they had had Mohammed Shami as well, who's just stands the seam bolt upright,
Yeah, okay.
we probably would have lost that game in Sydney.
Wow.
But and as an old bowler, I love seeing a little bit in the decks.
Okay.
But it makes for not big scores.
Yeah, right.
That makes the game exciting. So you've got to try and find, the perfect test wicket is a little bit on day one. If you get in, you can get some runs. Day two's, the wicket's going to flatten out. The ball's going to be second new ball, away you go. Day 3, a little bit of turn. Day 4's moving day. The ball's now turning. It's keeping a bit low. They're the perfect wickets.
Yeah, okay.
There's probably, if you asked everyone, they'd probably say a little bit too much in Sydney.
Yeah.
The other decks were
Did you say
competitive.
Melbourne probably the best?
Yeah, that was a good wicket.
Yeah, okay.
It was a good wicket. The day-night wicket, well, he's always going to do something the day-night, which brings me to McSweeney. Who had to go in and bat with Usman Khawaja for an hour and a bit at night against a new ball, and they survived.
Yeah.
He let a lot of balls go.
Yeah.
But my question about him was, he's never opened the batting. He bats 4. Why the friggin' hell would you pick? He's a really good young player, someone who bats 4 to open the batting in Test cricket.
Against India as well.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Now, he's worth a go because he showed a lot of guts. And since then, he's gone back, played for Brisbane. He got some runs. He'll go back to South Australia and get runs for them. He's a very, very good player. Why would you... That's like picking you to play front row.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Like
Not going to do well.
And I did an interview over, and this guy actually said, "Oh, well, he's opening the batting a specialist spot. That specialist." I went, man, they're fucking nutcases. You want to go out and face a dude bowling 90 miles an hour with a 5.5 ounce rocket, and you get hit everywhere when you're an opening batsman. They love that shit. Number 3 is probably your best player on the side. If we lose an opener, he's got to go in and open.
Yeah.
But if the openers get away, he's got to go in and get. And number 4, cash in.
Yeah, okay.
That's been his job.
Yeah.
Now they want him to open.
That's kind of like what Head's number 4, isn't it, for us? 5. Okay, so what Head's been doing for us is cashing in.
Cash in.
Yeah, okay.
Travis, go in there and just play all those extravagant shots and get 100 in 120 balls.
Yeah.
And we've been able to set it up for him to do that. And some of those innings were just, again, mate, how do you play like that?
So
That's
good.
unbelievable stuff.
Yeah.
So you got a couple of players now hovering around that side that can play like that. That's exciting cricket, mate. That's like the West Indians in my day.
Yeah.
They'd just come out, flay everybody around the ground, and then they had 4 really fast. And when you batted number 11, you didn't, well, look, my son said to me not that long ago, were you scared? I go, you can't be scared. Apprehensive.
Yeah, you never want to admit you're scared.
So just to go on with your point, cricket's moving in a really interesting way now, and we're seeing the influence of T20 coming into Test cricket. This is Sam Constance and all the kids that are playing this Jazzwal. They're just out there playing shots now because it's really entertaining, and you don't want to see some bloke bat all day and be 60 not out.
Yeah, okay.
You want to see someone bat all day and be 150 not out, and then his side made 400.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting how, like, content consumption, like, this generation wants excitement.
Yeah.
Excitement.
100%, mate.
Whereas, maybe 20, 30 years ago, they'd be happy to go 60 not out.
100%.
Bloody good job. Bloody good job, mate. You showed a lot of grit, a lot of
100%.
determination.
No, they want to see runs and sixes. And there is a little bit of a whisper going around, the talk of 4-day test matches. Because a lot of tests are now finishing a little bit early.
Yeah.
But if you get one like the Boxing Day test that finished in the last hour after 5 days of throwing punches at each other, that's perfect. But a lot of other test matches are finishing early. So there's a bit of talk about 4-day tests.
Okay. And, mate, growing up for yourself, you grew up in Matraville?
Yeah.
And so you said you were leaguey, but, I mean, at the same time, had an extremely successful cricket career quite young, state cricket.
Yeah.
What made you get into first league but then go into cricket? Because it's obviously 2 very different sports.
Yeah, look, there wasn't as many sports when I was growing up, and it was a huge rugby league area. I mean, guys like Georgie Piggins, Ron Coote had brewery trucks, and they lived local, and I used to see them in the truck, and you'd yell out, Ronnie! And he'd always, or George, they'd always wave. They knew everybody around the sport.
Yeah.
Paul Sate worked for Randwick Council, and I'd see him with the council cruise around. And I remember one day my dad came home and he said, jump in the car. He was a truck driver. My father had a Boral oil refinery. And he drove around a couple of streets, and John O'Neill and Gary Stevens were builders, and they had a company together. They'd build together. We pulled up outside this house in Matraville, and I've looked up, and on the scaffoldings, John O'Neill and Gary Stevens, and my old man went, get out and say hello to him. I remember getting down to this house saying, oh, Mr. O'Neill. I mean, I was about 8. Mr. Stevens. And they went, yep, do you barrack for the Rabbitohs? I said, yes, I love it. And my old man's in there and he's waving like that. Good on you, son. Mate, that day, like, that was unbelievable. And my all-time hero in rugby league was John Sattler.
Yeah, wow.
So my father being a mascot boy, die-hard Rabbitohs man, all his family played footy. I played 1 season for Matraville Tigers. And then my father came home this day and said, I've met a fella on the weighbridge who was weighing the trucks. Aboriginal fella called Gordon Ella. He said his twin sons are going to play for La Perouse next year. Why don't you go out and play with them? I went, all right, Dad. Whatever my dad said.
Yeah.
It was Mark and Glenn Ella. And Lloydie Walker. Yeah. And a couple of years after that, Nathan Gibbs turned up, and Nathan went on, Dr. Gibbs. You know him, Dr. Nathan Gibbs, but Nathan captained South in first grade. He was a wonderful player. So we had this team out at La Perouse that I played with for about 8 or 9 years. I thought everybody could do what Mark and Glenn Ellen would do as young teenagers, and kicking goals from 30 metres out with no shoes on, kicking both feet. Mark could kick both feet at 10 or 12. So could Glenn.
Far out.
And then Gary, their younger brother, would come up and play. So we had this team and it was just magical, and we played cricket in the summer just on the concrete, and I wanted to play for the Rabbitohs. So playing on the concrete when I was 17, I bounced the shit out of this old bloke one afternoon and I didn't realise that he'd played first grade for Randwick and made hundreds in first grade.
No way.
Yeah, and he rang up the secretary at Randwick and said, there's a maniac running around playing for Botany United B grade with this huge afro.
Yeah, wow.
He's a left armour and he's got a bit of pace. That secretary started ringing my house up at Matraville because she could look up, Whitney in the phone book, gave the address and
the phone book. Oh, man, I remember the phone book, yep.
So he started ringing. My father had already passed away 18 months before that, so he started ringing my place. And I said, I'm going surfing on Saturday morning, playing cricket in the afternoon, Mum. And then one day he rang and I was 20 minutes late from leaving to go for a surf. And he said, we're short a bowler at Snake Park in fourth grade. That was just up the road. I said, I've got no long whites. He said, my mum said, you can borrow Wayne's. This was one of my best mates. Had no spikes. They turned up with a bag with spikes. And I took 4 for 16 in this fourth grade game. And there was only 4 grades then in grade cricket.
No way.
4 for 16.
How old have you been then? 17?
17.
Yeah.
Dan and I don't talk about this too much, but that day I know now something happened in my head with bowling. A penny really dropped.
Yeah, okay.
And I still love my rugby league, and I played till I was 20 rugby league and still had some ambition of playing some trials for South. But I started to go up the grades really quickly at Randwick, fourth grade, and then fourth grade the next year, then third grade, second grade, and then into first grade, and had won competitions all along in every grade that I played, not on the back of my bowling, but certainly I took 30 or 40 wickets and it really contributed a lot. And I've never lost my love for rugby league and the physicality of rugby league. And when you watch really good sides play like Penrith, like Melbourne over the last 10 years, the combinations, and I sat down with Bellyache middle of last year at a function. What a fascinating dude he is.
Incredible.
To talk to, just incredible. So I've never lost my passion for all of that, but something happened with the cricket.
No way.
And then I got picked out of nowhere to be in the squad, and Doug Waters was there, and Rick McCosker was there, and Gary Gilmore was there, and Len Pascoe. I watched them play World Series cricket, when I was a younger teenager.
Yeah.
And one day I just went, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Wow. Do you think, was it specifically, when you say the penny drop, was it specifically the feeling of getting people out in cricket that you enjoyed, or do you just mean in general of like, you know what, I actually love
bowling.
Cricket. The bowling.
In long strides and spikes.
So the feeling of it, of the bowling.
And on a turf wicket.
Okay.
And the ball carrying through this day.
So a really basic, thing.
In the gloves.
Yeah,
we could
okay,
keep his
wow.
gloves, and it was like,
Yeah.
wow, I want to bowl faster. I want to bowl really fast. And the bonus for me was I was quite sharp in those early days, and there was a few left arm seamers, but no one of my pace.
Yeah, wow.
So this young rugby league mentality fighter who bowled fast left arm and was really aggressive just appeared.
Yeah, okay.
Bang. And I went past, I jumped over all of these guys that had been playing a lot of first grade cricket for a long time, and here I was, and no one knew who I was. Where the fuck did he come from? Like, what's this dude? He's a maniac.
Yep.
And he's been asked to come out to state practice, and he's just bounced Steve Rickson, who threw the bat down in the nets. I said, who the fuck are you? And Rick McCosker had to come up to me and say, hey, settle down a little bit, mate.
Yeah, wow.
You've been invited out here to bowl, pitch a few up.
No way.
So I think Rick knew, and some of those, if we could just temper this dude down, mate, we might have something here that we can work with, and they did.
Yeah.
And I remember very early when I got picked in my first year of Shield cricket, Alan Davidson, who was the great left armer and all-rounder for Australia. He was the president of the New South Wales Cricket Association, and he sat down and said, this is cricket, it's not rugby league. You can't do that.
Yeah, okay, wow.
And I think you've got something that we can work with. And I went, I was like 20.
Yeah, wow.
And this was Alan Davidson.
So like 3 years in, you're sitting down, one step away from the highest.
Playing for New South Wales a lot,
Yeah.
And then a chance of playing for Australia.
Far
and
out.
Davo, for the rest of my career and the rest of my life, he passed away a few years ago, just took me under his wing.
Yeah, wow.
And he was just the most beautiful person. And what a cricketer. You read his stats, Alan Davidson, mate.
Yeah.
Ridiculous shit.
Wow,
Yeah.
far out.
So I was very lucky.
It's so interesting that it's such a simple thing like bowling
Yeah.
is what you just fell in love with, that sound, that...
Do you know your first try you scored, the 75 metre?
yeah.
How did you feel?
I remember running going, I can't believe this is actually happening.
And then you put the ball down
it was
and
the
you
best.
just go, well, that day at Snape Park, just the feeling of the ball carrying through.
Yeah.
I sort of felt that day, this is what it's like.
Yeah,
I'd
wow.
been playing cricket all my life. But that day, this is what it must be like, man. Playing fourth grade. It was so inspiring.
Yeah, wow.
I got home and Mum said, how'd you go? I said, I took 4 for 6 I want to play next week and I want to play the week after.
That's
and
so
I think
good.
she thought, good, because my dad had died 18 months before that. And I think she thought that the cricket boys were a little bit quieter than the rugby league boys.
yeah.
She got that wrong.
It's just probably more behind closed doors, maybe.
100%.
A bit smarter, maybe. Not quieter, just smarter. Okay, so you get selected for the New South Wales side.
Yeah.
Specifically, how did that come about? What do you remember the actual conversation of it getting? Was it when he called you into his office, or was it before?
You never got called. You heard it on the radio.
Oh wow! No way.
Yeah, even if you got selected for Australia, you never got called. You heard Jim Maxwell announce it on the ABC at 3 p.m. in the afternoon.
Let's go back to those days.
Unbelievable. So, as a player, you're at 2 minutes to 3.
Just go,
You're
far out.
ABC radio on,
Yeah.
waiting for sport to come on after the bulletin that Jimmy Maxwell or whoever it may have been on the ABC would say, and the Australian cricket team has been announced, and then he'd read out the 12.
Far out.
Yeah, so you never got called. Got called a little bit later. I got called on Christmas Day one day at my mum's, at the family home, and the phone was just behind me. My mum said, pick that halfway through lunch. I picked it up. Yeah, Michael, is that you? Yeah, Bobby Simpson here. Oh, coach of the Australian team, 1987. He said, look, Merv's, Boxing Day test starts the next day. Merv's struggling a bit, and yeah, Bruce Reed's got a bit of a back, and can you come down to Melbourne? There's a ticket for you at 3:30. I went, yep.
No way.
And I was married then. Left the missus, went home to Clovelly, packed all my kit up.
Yep.
Got to the airport, flew down. They had a 5 or 6 o'clock session on the MCG. Next day I'm bowling in a Boxing Day test.
Sell out and everything, like just
Absolutely.
just going.
Against New Zealand. Against New Zealand, 87. And in that test, I ended up blocking out Sir Richard Hadlee to draw the game. Otherwise, it would have been 1-1 and they would have retained the Trans-Tasman Cup. We won that series 1-0, and me and Craig McDermott blocking him out gave Alan Border his first test series win as a captain.
No way.
And I averaged 5.
So walk us through blocking him out. So for the rugby league audience that may not be familiar with the cricket,
Yeah.
you're in a situation where basically if you draw, you keep it? Or
Yep.
sorry,
We won the first test in
Yep.
Brisbane. Sydney was drawn, and this is the Boxing Day test in Melbourne. So I only played 3 tests, and I wasn't involved in those first 2.
Yep.
But of course, I'm following it all the time.
and you got called in the night
got
before.
called in the night before for this Boxing Day test, the last test. So we go down. It was a really good game, and look, we were going to win the game easily on the last day until Sir Richard took the second new ball. He'd already taken 5 wickets in the first innings, and he took 5 in the second, so he took another 10 in that match.
No way.
He'd bowled 40 overs in the first innings, and he'd bowled about 25 overs in this second innings. And there was about 5 or 6 overs to go when I went in. We needed 30-something to win the match, and there was 5 or 6 overs to go. Craig McDermott was out there. I remember him punching me in the chest when I got out there, going, we can get the runs. I go, no, we can't. We can't get the runs, mate. We just got to try and block it out.
Yeah.
So fast forward, we hung in there. There was a second last over. Danny Morrison's bowling, and Craig went back onto his stumps, and he missed the ball and it hit him in the pads.
Yep.
And I'm at the non-strikers end, and I look down and I think, that's close.
Yeah.
That's really close. And I turn around to walk back, and it's New South Wales umpire Dick French umpiring in the game because they didn't have international umpires. Home umpires.
Yeah.
And I'm walking back to put me bat in, and they're appealing. Ah! And I just look, and Dick's eyes just flashed at me, and he went, "That's not out." You're not going to believe it.
God.
Dick's a very elderly man now in his 80s. When I see him, and he usually comes to the Randwick Petersham President's Lunch where I'm president at my club. I go, "Dick, 87 against New Zealand." He goes, "Yes, Michael." I go, "That LBW, Craig McDermott, second last over." He goes, "In my opinion, Michael, not out." That's my man, Dickie. All right. So he's still giving it not out. But somehow I got to face the last over.
Yeah, wow.
And McDermott's got the gloves off. He's sitting on the bat. He ain't running.
Yeah.
I've got to take the last over. And it was Richard Hadlee's 30-something over of the day. Incredible. Just incredible. And I blocked him out. So we drew the match, which gave us a 1-0 win.
Yeah.
If I had got out or Craig had got out, they would have won the test, and it would have been 1-1, and they would have retained the Trans-Tasman Cup. Because we blocked him out, we won it back, and Alan won his first series as a captain.
No way.
And he'd been trying for 2.5 years to win a series. He'd threatened to retire a couple of times because it just wasn't happening. And he was a very reluctant captain early doors. He didn't want the job.
Yeah.
They sort of give it to him when Kim Hughes retired and said, "You're going to be the captain, you're the next most senior player."
Yeah.
And I think early doors Alan struggled with that because Alan's not a domineering, you do this, you do this.
Yeah.
He's a very consultative type of guy. I mean, when he got shitty, we called him Captain Grumpy, and you knew you were in trouble if he had the teapot going. If he looked at you finally and he had the teapot going, "Oh, that was a shit over, I better bowl a better one next day."
Yeah.
But, yeah, that series and that win for Alan made him believe that he could captain a winning side.
Yeah,
and it was massive. Mate, I averaged 6.18 in Test cricket.
Yeah.
So, I should tell you this story. Walking off the ground, the wicketkeeper, Ian Smith, has run over to me and he's given me the ball. And he said, "You did a great thing for Australia today, Widow. You need that ball." I never thought about it for years, and we got this ball. And then I'm at a lunch with Richard Hadlee 20 years later. He goes, "Have you still got that ball that Smith gave you?" I went, "Yeah." He said, "I took 5 with that ball." And I thought, oh, fuck, I never even thought about that.
Yeah,
and then he said, "I took 36 5-wicket hauls in my career, and it's the only ball that I don't have." So I said to him at that stage, "Well, Ian Smith gave it to me."
Yeah.
Fast forward another few years, I'm with Sir Richard and his wife, Diana, Lady Diana. He goes, "How's me ball going?" So I thought, mate, it really is his ball. I mean, I took 2 7-fers. I've got both those balls. They are precious things. Your blood, sweat, tears, your calculations, your effort is in that ball.
Yeah.
So 2015, we're playing New Zealand in the World Cup final down in Melbourne. And 2 nights before that, they had a massive dinner down there. Sir Viv was there, Sir Ian Botham, Sir Richard, had everybody, And a mate rang up and said, "You've talked to me about this ball. Do you want to come down and give it back to him at this function before the World Cup final?" I went, "Yep." So they flew me down there. No one knew I was there. Mark Nicholas was emceeing the function. He said, "Oh, Mike Whitney's here somewhere. We've got 5 minutes for you, wet." So I come up, and I tell this story much. So I've got it in my pocket, and I asked Richard to come up, and I gave it back to him. He put it in his fingers, and then he put it in his bowling hand like he was going to bowl an outswinger. He just held it, and then this tear ran down the side of his face.
No way.
Well, mate, that really got me then, because it's 5.5 ounces of cork and leather. That's really all it is. But it's not.
Nah.
It's not. I did that much press with him that night, and then I started getting emails and letters from politicians in New Zealand saying, "What you've done for Trans-Tasman relations." I'm going, it's a fucking cricket ball, man. But
It's not.
so, fast forward another couple of years, I'm again with Sir Richard and Lady Di. He gets up to speak at this function. I go, Diana, how's my ball going? She goes, that bloody ball, you open the front door, it's in a glass case with a fucking story about it.
Oh, no
As soon as you
way.
walk in, Mike Whitney, Richard
Oh,
Hadlee,
that's
Richard's
so
front
good.
door.
That's so good.
So what it's done for me and Richard is that we keep in contact.
Yeah.
We email each other on birthdays. We talk over the phone sometimes.
But as you said, like, it's just a cricket ball, but it's not. Look at the story around that ball.
His life, and I've never asked him this, but I will, his life would not have been complete until I handed him back that ball. And he's got the 36
Yeah, of course.
balls that he took 5 for.
Yeah, wow.
He would have had 35. He would have never, and I knew that. And I'd had it for 27 years.
No way.
When I handed it back to him.
It's just that ball.
It's a cricket ball,
Yeah,
bro.
but it connects you forever kind of thing, you know?
Unbelievable.
Connects you forever. Wow, that's
Unbelievable.
incredible.
All because of my one day I batted okay.
Mate, now, this would have been, I assume, before this happened, but Western Australia, I understand the rugby league might have come at you a little bit. You had a clash
I know
late
exactly what you're going to do.
with Rod Marsh.
Yeah.
Could you walk us through the rugby league clash with Rod Marsh?
That was the Sheffield Shield final in 82-3. Prior to that year, whoever finished on top with the most points won the Sheffield Shield. Then they decided that the top 2 teams would play off in a Shield final. It would be a 5-day game, like a test match. It's the only domestic 5-day game played in the world, cricket. And whoever was on top would get the home ground advantage, and you had to beat them outright to win it, which is very difficult to do on someone's home ground.
Yeah, right.
So we leave Sydney and we go and play in Perth. It was one of the greatest games of cricket, but I'll get to the Rod Marsh situation. Rodney was batting, and he was batting with Jeff Marsh, who was batting 5 or 6 at that stage. This is before they put him up to open the batting for Australian 50 Test matches, Jeff Marsh. But Rick McCosker come to me, and this is my 3rd season, and I'm just starting to really understand the game and be a part of this New South Wales team, whatever. And he says, look, we really need a wicket, man. So Jeff Lawson had been bowling and Trevor Chappell had been bowling some seamers from the other end. So I'm ready to go, a fresh spell. So first over, I get it out. And then second over, I think I'll bounce him because he loved hooking. So I bounce him, he's gone, just smacked me to the boundary. But I knew I had a yard up my sleeve.
Okay.
So the next ball I run in, I whacked that one in, and it got big on him. And he only got halfway through the shot and it lobbed up. And Steve Smith, the original Steve Smith,
the OG.
Stephen Barry Smith, who was an unbelievable player in his own right, caught it. So Rodney's turned around, he's walking away. And I've got to emphasise this too. Lilly, Marsh and Chappell, until 85 when they retired, man, they were the kings, bro. They were the kings.
Yeah.
What they said, it went.
Yeah, okay.
And DK was a hero too. I had posters of those 3 and Doug Walters, Ian Chappell on my wall at home. So he's walking off and I ran down the wicket and I went, fuck off. It was that big a wicket.
Yeah, wow.
He walked 20 metres and then he turned around and he started walking back and he's zoned in on me and he went, the fuck did you say? I said, you fucking heard me. And this is what he didn't like. I said, you think I'm scared of you because you got a fucking bat in your hand? Fucking bring it on. Because of this reason. I wasn't going to let him bully me in front of my teammates on the field. If he had been able to do that, it would have given them on their home ground, and this is Rodney. I didn't think that much. All I knew in my head was I'm going to stand up to him.
Yeah, yeah.
There's some great photos of me with the tits out and Rick McCosker and Peter Toohey pulling us apart. But I knew I'd made a very big mistake. This is Rod Marsh. He was vice-captain of the Australian cricket team, a fucking world record holder, a legend. So, of course, walking off at the end of the day, we'd bowled them out. So we batted, that's right. But because they were in the field at the end of the day, you always go into the dressing room of the teams in the field. Rick McCosker said, and I just love this man, never heard Rick swear, very religious man, Rick, but he only had to talk to you in hushed tones like this, and that was enough. Mate, Rick McCosker was that good to us, I feel like dropping to a knee every time I see the great Rick McCosker.
Yeah.
I still call him captain.
Yeah, wow.
My first captain. He taught us so much. He said to me, you better go up and apologise to him. I went, yep. Walked in the dressing room, I walked straight over. I said, Rod, I'm really sorry about that. Well, he just went, who do you think you are? Fucking can't bowl, wanker, yeah, and that. So I've drawn the left back in the dressing room, and our manager's standing there, and he grabbed my arm. He said, come with me. Mate, I'm ready to punch on.
You passed that line.
I've gone back into rugby league, mate. I'm ready to punch on in the dressing room. This is third day of the game, I think. They dragged me in the dressing room, locked me in there. I'm in the dressing room, fucking, to get a beer. So half an hour later, they all came in. Rick just went, I said, but I could feel the electricity in the room. Mm. We went out and had a meal that day. We turned up the next day for day 4. It was like there was electricity coming out of everybody's fingers. Mm. It had lifted us. I didn't mean to do this. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Get down to the last session. It's tea on the last day. They only need 70 or 80 to win. They're 4 or 5 down. Kim Hughes is in, smacking us around the paddock. It's the only time I've ever seen Rick McCosker get a bit flustered. We're walking into the dressing room together, and Kim Hughes goes, "You're done. You're gone. We're going to smash in the last session. That's it. You're gone. Effing. So they went in there to the room. We all went in this dressing room. Rick McCosker just shut the door. He went, did you hear what he just said? Oh. And I can't remember after that, but the electricity just was coming out of everybody's fingers. We went out there, we bowled them out, and we won the first Shield final. There was then a presentation on the ground, and this is what I did. I got presented with my Benson and Hedges Sheffield Shield medal, and I walked up to Rodney Marsh and I went, and I showed it to him. He just went, Grrr. So I didn't get selected to play for Australia for the next 5 years.
No way.
I didn't get selected for the next 5 years.
I'm thinking of it from a rugby league perspective. You know, the vice captain of the Australian side right now. Imagine a young fella going in, trying to say sorry. The vice captain chirps back and then tries to fight him in his own dressing room.
I drew it back like that, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, how bizarre.
Wow.
I think about it now, and I think if some young punk did that to me,
yeah,
you fucking idiot you think you are.
Yeah, wow. But you did try to apologise.
I did try to apologise. Mate, I remember turning up those next couple of days. It was like it was on now.
Yeah, it was more than cricket.
It was on from day one, but it was really on now. Now, we talk about that win. New South Wales hadn't won in Perth for 20 years, and we hadn't won the Shield for 17.
Far out.
From that time on, we played in 7 Shield finals in the next 10 years and won 6.
No way.
I managed to play in 4, won 4. An incredible era of New South Wales cricket after that moment. But all of those older guys, Len Pascoe, Peter Tooheys, they'd set it all up. Rick McCosker for that moment in those early days.
Far
It was insane, man. And we got back and we had the Shield, and I've got a photo of Jeff Lawson and Rick McCosker carrying the Shield in the big box, and my mother was there, and she grabs Rick, and I got this photo of me mum at the airport kissing Rick McCosker.
So good.
It was a pivotal moment and a monumental moment in the history of New South Wales cricket, and I'm so humbled that I played in that game. That's one of the best games of cricket, of any cricket that I ever played, that Shield final, 82-3.
No way.
Yeah.
Far
and we're
out.
still telling them about it. Beat us in the first one. Yeah.
Wow.
Because there was 2 sides, Denon, that we weren't real fond of. Western Australia was one, and guess who the other one was?
Might have been Queensland.
Because AB had gone up there. He was from Mossman. Jeff Thompson had gone up there. He was a Bankstown boy. They'd poached Greg Chappell, all trying to win a Shield. And they had a good team. And Kepler Vessels, my old mate, they had a great side. And they disliked us, and we weren't too fond. And Western Australia, we were not really fond.
Yeah, okay. Wow. I mean, it's just that moment to make it more than cricket. It's like it became something deeper, to galvanise the boys.
It was a big moment.
Yeah, what an incredible.
I was going to punch on with him on the field. Can you believe it? Like that, I would have been barred for life. That was it. Never to play again.
And so you legitimately didn't get selected for Australia for 5 years after that?
Yeah.
Was it worth it?
Yep. Yeah. Not at the time it wasn't.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think about it now, and I wasn't going to be bullied.
Yeah.
And I'd heard of players that had been bullied by some of those old senior players.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be me.
Yeah.
Mate, I come from Matraville.
Yeah.
I played footy I played 4 years for Mascot Juniors.
Yeah.
You don't get bullied down there, bro. You're not all in at Mascot.
Yeah.
Don't play.
Especially back in those days. Mate, now getting selected for your test debut, unusual circumstances. How did that come about?
Mate. What a life. It's just been
it's funny. So, like,
insane.
doing a bit of research just for your life, you've lived like 3 or 4 different lives. It's actually incredible. Incredible. We haven't even gotten to all the stuff after cricket.
I think one thing I've said to a lot of the young cricketers, and it's different now because they earn a lot of money, but I've been really good at reinventing myself and moving on. Because there's some people that I know that have been retired from just Sheffield Shield cricket. They've found it really hard to move on to the next stanza of their life, and they've, nothing wrong with relying on cricket, but if you're not in the media or you're not coaching or you're not, it's really hard. I got lucky I found TV.
Yeah.
But back to 1981. I debuted for New South Wales in the 80-81 season. That was insane. I was playing with Doug Walters and Rick McCosker and Dutchy Holland and all those people I'd read about. And a lot of the players at that stage were going to Lancashire to play league cricket.
Okay.
Some of the guys from my club, Randwick, had played for this club called Fleetwood in the Northern League up near Blackpool in England. So we got in contact. Yep, we'll sign him, we'll pay him, we'll fly him over. He'll have to pay his own airfare home. We'll find him some accommodation with some people from the club, no car, and £65 a week, which was 2 nights out, pretty much. So I arrive at Fleetwood, and another guy from the club, Peter Devlin, who ended up the groundsman at North Sydney Oval for 30 years, he came, we were playing together, we played a lot of first grade, and he was the amateur at the club and I was the professional. So, without turning this into a 1-hour story, which it is, I'm at home one day with Edith and Eddie Funk. And when I first met them, he said, "Hello, my name's Eddie Funk."
Oh, that's a great name.
And I said, "Mate, I'm 22. Right?" Yeah. I said, "How do you spell that, mate?" And he went, F-U-N-K. He was about 75. Edith was 65. I boarded with them. They ended up my English grandparents.
Yeah, wow.
They were that kind to me.
Yeah.
When I left, Edith actually said to me at the end of the season that she'd thought that she'd been to finishing school until I come to live at her house. She caught me with a Sheila downstairs.
Oh, no.
Just everything. Everything could happen that.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. Everything a mum would have to deal with a 22-year-old, she had to deal with.
Anyway, again, a phone call. There's half a dozen phone calls in my life that changed the course of my life. You had to answer the phone, "Hello, Fleetwood 2791. That was the phone number. So I go, "G'day, Fleetwood 2791. I go, "Is that you, Whit?" "Yeah." "Oh, this is Greg Geese." And I'd played a few Shield games with Geese. He's from Newcastle. He was on an SO Oil scholarship at Gloucestershire. He said the great Mike Proctor from South Africa, who was their professional, and 2 other fast bowlers broken down. And I told them, "You're playing league cricket and they want you to come down for a trial to play midweek, a couple of 3-day games, and Sunday league games, which are 40-over John Play league games." So I rang the captain and the chairman of Fleetwood and they let me go down and trial. So I had to play for Fleetwood, but I'd signed a contract with a county team as well, Gloucestershire. I remember talking to the manager, right? He goes, "Have you got any airfares home?" I said, "Oh, no, not home." He said, "We'll pay for that."
Wow.
He said, "Have you got a car?" I went, "No, we'll give you a car." Wow. He said, "We'll pay you 230 quid for a 3-day game and 140 quid for a 1-day game. I'm getting 65 a week. I can't even buy drinks in the club."
Yeah.
"And so and so, we'll give you this and we'll give you that and we'll give you that. Have you got any questions?" And he said, "If you sign this contract now, I'll give you £1,000 cash."
Oh.
And he slid it over. I said, I'll have to ring Fleetwood just to... So they said, okay. He said, any questions? I went, one. He said, what is it? I said, have you got a pen? Signed that thing and went home with this car and airfare home and all this money. But I'm playing my 4th game for them at Cheltenham. Australia's over there. It's the Ashes. Of course, we're following it. And there's 6 or 7 New South Wales players in that Ashes squad who I'd been playing with for a season. So I'm playing at Cheltenham. Again, the phone comes out. The guy says, this is the manager of the Australian cricket team. I pick up, and this Australian voice goes, you've been picked in the team. And I went, fuck off, idiot. God, it was a mate of mine, G'ing up.
Yep.
He rang back and said, this is Fred Bennett, Mike. I'm manager of the Australian cricket team. And I knew Fred, he was from Sydney.
Yeah.
Get in your car now, drive to the Grand Hotel at Manchester. You've been added to this test squad. The test is starting tomorrow, 5th test at Old Trafford. So Gloucester's let me go.
Yeah.
The couple of hours drive up to Manchester, I can't recall 1 second of that drive, but I pull up at the Grand Hotel and Fred had said, come straight up to my room, 271. I opened the door. Fred, sorry for swearing at you, mate. Like, he was the president of Balmain Cricket Club here and chairman of New South Wales Cricket. I knew Fred. He said, that's all right, son, come in. And Kim Hughes is sitting there, who I'd met once, captain. I went, no, Kim, wait. He goes, you're playing tomorrow.
Far out. Oh, wow.
I went, you fucking joking. He went, no, we got enough to carry the drinks and that. We didn't put you in, we're playing tomorrow. We're going in with 3 seamers. So you'll be bowling after Lily and Alderman open the bowling. He said, go up to your room, your gear's up there, here's the key, come down in an hour. We've got to have a press conference to announce that you're in the 11. Where am I at that moment?
Yeah, heads off.
I've got no idea, mate.
Yeah.
So I go up, open the door, and you roomed with someone in those days. The captain got his own room, vice captain got his own room. Walk in, shit everywhere, and then I see this bag, this beautifully crafted leather port, and it had DK Lilly written on it. Oh. I'd met him once. 5 minutes later, he walked in. Like, I fucking stood at attention, mate. I just did not know what to do, what to say. He was amazing, bro.
Yeah.
He was just... I had photos of him on my wall.
No way.
Next morning, we get to the ground, we bowl. I get changed, warm up, we're out there. Packed house at Old Trafford. Half of Fleetwood's there to watch me play. They're only an hour away at Fleetwood. Half of Fleetwood's driven down to watch me play. Man, it was insane. It was surreal. It was like being in a movie.
And
I never had time to suck it in. Like, I arrived that night, now out on the field.
Yeah, you're bowling.
And next minute, Kim Hughes is going, have a trundle.
Far out. What do you remember? What you were thinking that first bowl? Do you remember, like, just that?
I do. Yeah, because Dennis and Terry Alderman had bowled fantastic spells, and I think Terry had got Graham Gooch out and another wicket or two. But I'm bowling to David Gower, who at the time was the best left-hander, playing another guy called Tavares, who scored the slowest 50 in Test cricket history in that innings.
No way.
And David Gower. Yeah, Jeff Boycott was the other one that got out.
Yeah.
Right. So Kim's just saying, settle down, mate, just get this right one in the right place and blah, blah, blah. So run in, and the cloud cover was at this roof height. It was a Manchester, coldish. You could have touched the cloud. So I run in, let the first one go, and Tavares sort of blocks it, and he gets an edge, and it goes to square leg. That's it. One ball out. So Kim goes, pats me on the arse when I'm walking back, and I feel this spot. And within the next 10 seconds, down comes the rain.
Wow.
So we're off.
Yeah.
I bowl one ball. Off.
Oh, no.
Sit in the shed for an hour. Waiting to bowl my second delivery in Test cricket, is it? Or is the game going to be abandoned?
Yeah.
Am I ever just going to bowl
one
delivery?
Oh, no.
Anyway, we get on. Bowl the next one. Tavares gets off strike. The next delivery, David Gower wants to take the young punk down.
Yeah.
And he has a slash at it, and it goes straight to first slip. Catchable height. Graham Woods at first slip. It bursts through his hands, hits him in the mouth, and he goes off. They drop the catch. That's third ball. Finally get the over out. Like, fuck, was all that? Am I dreaming this shit? Or it was surreal. In my third over, Gowers had another poke out there and he got caught in the gully. So I bowled 3 overs, 1 for 8. I'm thinking, how easy is this Test cricket? I realised very quickly that it wasn't that easy. But David Gowers, my first Test wicket, that I took 2 in the first innings, 2 in the second. Dennis Lilly. I roomed with Dennis Lilly and shared the ball with him and Terry Oldham. And it was just surreal. Yeah, so they kept me on, played that Test. Then they added me officially to the squad. We played a 1-day game against Leicestershire and then a 3-day game against Sussex at Hove. I took 6 for in that match. That got me into the last Test. And I played the last Test at the Oval, which was a draw.
Wow.
So I went away to play league cricket with 5 first-class games under my...
And pretty much chasing a dream. You're on, what, £65 a week or whatever?
That first Test was my 7th first-class match.
No way.
I played 2 for Gloucester and 4 for New South Wales. That was it.
Far out.
So it was like, in you go, champ, good luck.
And what, 3 or 4 years ago, probably what, 4 years ago, you were, 2 years ago, you're still playing league on the side.
Yeah.
Because you were 2 of your 20.
That's right. Yeah.
Far
it was
out.
it happened so quickly. It was...
I think also just like when you're brought up in this generation, because we've got the internet, going overseas is a lot less foreign.
Yeah.
I feel like back in your day, going overseas is like going to another planet.
In the 70s, I'd done an apprenticeship at Qantas as a ground engineer, so we used to get 10% fares. So, I was travelling a bit with the mates from Qantas and stuff like that. Yeah, there was very few people that were travelling. Asia had just sort of opened up, Bali, stuff like that. India. And now I went to India in the early 80s travelling, very few people travelling around in a backpack, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Few people in Europe, Kentucky tours were just starting. But yeah, just to go away for 6 months and to play cricket in a foreign country was a really big deal.
Yeah.
And my mother, like there was no phones. You had to, I tell my children this, to call my mother from Fleetwood in 1981, I had to ring the exchange and say, can I book a trunk call to Sydney on this number in Sydney? And they'd go, yes, love, we'll call you back next Wednesday evening. And this would be on the Friday night. So on that Wednesday evening, between this and this, I'd be there. And the phone would ring. They'd say, this is the exchange, love, hang on. And they'd dial it. And I'd hear my mum go, hello? And they go, hello, love, this is England calling. Your son, Mike Whitney, is calling, and he wants to know, can you collect the call and pay for it? Mum would go, yes. And that's how you just couldn't dial direct.
Wow.
You had to book a trunk call. How bizarre.
Yeah, and
mind you, that's only 40-odd years ago, man. That's crazy.
Not that long. And it's just like, I'm just trying to kind of add to the environment of the daunting nature of what you were experiencing, because you're overseas. You got the call from the Australian squad. You're in a foreign land. You're just rocking up to a hotel. Like it's a grander scale. The world has gotten smaller since then.
Much smaller. And the good thing, which I mentioned earlier, was there was 6 or 7 New South Wales players on that tour. Out of the 18 on tour, a third of them were Blues.
Yeah.
So they had Jeff Lawson and Trevor Chappell and Graham Beard and Steve Rickson and John. Just come here.
Because if you go into the Australian squad now, they all know each other.
Yeah,
like they've played together, they've gone through the same systems, they follow each other on Instagram.
There were guys in that squad that I'd never met. I'd never met Ray Bright before.
Yeah, wow.
The left arms, I'd never met him.
Yeah,
just meeting him on the day of the game. Hey Ray, call me Spotty.
No way.
Call me Widow. We're good, Yeah.
No way.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was really crazy.
Now you played against the West Indies when they were, and we just talked about the daunting nature of. And also I think like another thing that I just want to kind of put forward is like the daunting nature of going to a whole new culture too. So England's one thing, but you're going against West Indies, they're so foreign to you. You don't know what the culture is, speaking different language. So there's also that, whereas now with the internet, we understand cultures a little bit better and it's less foreign.
Yep.
Whereas you're going up against West Indies that almost like aliens to you to a degree. Obviously not aliens, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's so foreign to you.
Absolutely.
It's just like, so what was that like playing against, the West Indies during that period?
They were dominant pretty much from the mid-70s. I started playing first-class cricket in 1980 and right through till I retired in 94. They were the dominant nation. We had some good times, but, mate, when you had 4 fast bowlers, that it was just so relentless. And, they had their top 4 in the early 80s, and then Mikey Holding retired and Andy Roberts retired, and someone else filled in for a while Joel and Malcolm Marshall were then the 2 best, and then, Ian Bishop came along and Ezra Mosley, and then Kirtley and Courtney came. They just had this production line of really fast bowlers. Some that bowled fast weren't very skillful, but they were still fast. I mean, Patrick Patterson was scary, man. He'd bowl one way down the leg side and then a Yorker outside off something, an unplayable, then one right at your head. There was no pattern about him. And he bowled at 150 clicks. It was scary. Even the batsman used to go, man, I just can't work this pattern out with him. No pattern. Run in and just let him go. Yeah. And the batting was vicious. I mean, Viv Richards he's one of the only blokes that, like I said, create chaos the moment he came to the crease. Greenwich and Haynes, 2 of the biggest stroke playing openers ever. Then Viv, then Richie Richardson. I mean, they just went on, and then you had these bowlers that just, it was scary. And when you were in the shower with the team after the game, and you saw guys like Jeff Marsh and Booney and AB, these are the best players in the world, bruising everywhere over them. You go, shit, I bat last. Courtney Walsh in my last test match hit me on the badge. I'd been in for a couple of overs. I've known Courtney for a long time. I went, Court, and my ears are, I could just bowl it at the stumps, man. That's a shit length. He said, that's a good length. I said, bowl it at the stumps. It'll go straight through, bro. We'll get off. What are you doing? Like, you're wasting our time. So they were incredibly skillful bowlers, and it happened in the mid-70s. Unfortunately, Tony Gregg said, we're going to make them wallow when they come to England in 1975. Well, if you talk to Vivian about that, nobody making us wallow in the shit, and they just crushed them. Yeah, wow. And that was the moment that Clive Lloyd said, no, I'm just going to go home and find all these bowlers now and destroy everybody. And they did for 20 years. Oh, amazing. There's what?
A documentary on that.
What's it called? Fire in Babylon?
That's it, Fire in Babylon. Yeah,
and you hear Viv in that. He says that there were undercurrents. There were undercurrents, in England trying to, get us from underneath. Yeah, okay. Like this is political and all this sort of stuff. And they just went, no, we're just going to take you down. They finished people's careers during that series.
No way.
They hurt.
So they were just aggressive, dominant, powerful athletes.
And there was no restriction on bounces back then. Yeah. You could bowl 6 bumpers in a row and really hurt people, and they hurt a lot.
It would have been less padding back then too, I'm assuming?
Padding.
Yeah, wow.
When I played my first test match, the pads were okay. The gloves were cigar gloves. They were the best. But they got Kevlar inserts in them now and stuff like that. The thigh guard was a fucking tissue. There was no inside thigh guard. There was no chest guards in those days, no arm guards.
My God.
And you had the early style of helmets. Yeah. But that was the best at the time, so you thought that you're okay. Yeah. I look at what they got now and think, oh, man,
bulletproof.
It's come a long way. You can be like a silly Posturepedic mattress if you want to now. Just have it all. And if you don't square up, you're not going to get hit anywhere there. But it was, I'm not going to say scary, because you can't be scared. If you're scared, you don't last. Apprehensive about going out there to bat against them. And particularly if Michael Holding or Kirtley had 3 or 4 wickets and the second new ball is taken at 80 overs and we're 6 down. So number 8 and 9 are in and 10 and 11 to go. Yeah. And Kirtley wants a 5-fer or Joel wants a 5-fer. So when number 11 comes in, They don't ease up.
Yeah.
They want my wicket because I might be 7 for them.
Wow.
And they've got the second new ball. I said to Mark Taylor one day, I've faced more new balls than you've ever faced. Every time I go in there, it's a second new ball. So,
that's great.
Would I say vicious sometimes? Yeah, I'd have to say sometimes they were. And particularly if someone got under their goat, Viv would just, like Coley was trying to wind them up.
Okay, yeah.
Viv would just wind them up. And look, he's the only guy, mate. People ask me about Vivian a lot. Good friends with Viv. Would he be good in T20 cricket? Okay, mate, he used to hit him out of the ground with the toothpicks that they used in those days, like out of the ground, not over the boundary, out of the ground with the toothpicks. Any attack. I said to him one day, helmets. No. I said, never had a helmet in that bag. He's pointing to his kit. He's never had a helmet in the kit. Never owned a helmet.
No way.
Never wore a helmet. And everybody tried to take him down. He was the king.
Yeah.
And he'd just go, psst. I saw Rodney Hogg watching on the TV one day, hit him in a Boxing Day test in Melbourne on the jaw. So Hoggy was quick. Hoggy was serious base. And Viv's just got it timed, just a little top edge, bang. And he's just got the cap on the side, he's chewing the gum. He went like this, put the gum in there, and he just rubbed it. And he's going like that. Ay, cool. Everybody's running in, you all right?
Yeah.
Fucking broken jaw or something. Ay, cool. Like that. Gum, glove, next ball. It's got to be a bouncer, hasn't it?
Yeah.
8 rows back.
Far out.
And the MCG in those days, no ropes. It was a long hit to hit a 6 at the MCG in my day. No ropes. Right to the boundary.
Yeah.
6 rows back. Bring it on, Huggy.
And, mate, played against Brian Lara. I guess what's it's like playing against Brian Lara.
Unfortunately, I was 12th man in the test in Sydney where Shane didn't debut. No, that was that was against India. But Brian got 277 in that test match, and I was 12th man. So when you're 12th man, it's a shit job. But you've got to sit and watch the whole game because someone might put their hand up straight away and want a jump or a dribble.
Yeah.
So I watched that whole innings. And Bobby Simpson was very careful about what he said about other players and stuff like that. And the only comment he made that day, so I was there with, you might know Errol Alcott because he did the physio for South for a long time, but he was our physio for the Australian team. So there's me, Bob Simpson, Errol Alcott, and the manager of the Australian team at the time, Ian McDonald. And Bob went like this when he got to about 250. We might see Sir Garfield Sobers' test batting record broken this today, which at the time was 365. And then we run Brian out on 277, and that was the only way he was going to get out that day.
Yeah, wow.
To watch him play, and you got to understand this about Brian. Brian's the only batsman in first-class cricket to make 100, a 200, a 300, a 400, and a 500. He's the only guy to make 500 in one innings of a first-class game. I think he was playing for Durham against someone in England, and in a day and a half he made 501 not out.
What?
And he got dropped on 13.
He did.
Dropped on 13.
Got dropped on 13 by the wicket keeper, I think, didn't he?
That
like
bloke.
boom. And if you watch some of that innings, mate, he just fucking flays them.
Wow.
And, mate, it's a county game, but he get 500 in one innings.
Yeah.
People thought that was impossible. The record before that was 499. And that guy, the Pakistani guy, this is an insane story. And I won't tell you the full story, but he's on 497. He's batted for 2 days. Hanif Mohammed of the famous Mohammed brothers, 4 and played Test cricket. So on 497, he hits it out into the outfield. They run 1, 498. They run 2, 499. And they try and steal the cheeky third after 2 days and get run out. And everybody said then, well, no one will make 500. That was the chance. And the cricket god said, no. That was the chance. And no one will ever get that until Brian came on.
And then the bloke that dropped him on 13. Oh my
Well, that
God.
bloke's happy because he's part of history
Yeah,
now. He says,
true.
I dropped him on 13, mate. He wouldn't have gone.
Intentionally.
Sorry, he was dropped on 18.
But Brian, when you talk to Brian, and I'm good friends with Brian too, he was never satisfied.
Yeah, wow.
Never satisfied.
Always
if I
the
got
next
50, I
run.
wanted 100. I wanted 150, 200. And just, what a beautiful player and timing. I went to the West Indies in 91. He just sort of got into the squad at the time. And for the 5 tests we played, he was 12th man. And we knew he was a good player. So he's in the dressing room during the first test in Jamaica in his blazer, 19 years of age, really handsome dude. And Greg Matthews and I go, hey, Brian, get over here. Come here. How you doing, brother? What's going on? I said, loosen the time, man. Get a beer into you, it's all right. And he's looking around the dressing room and Mo said, well, if Viv's the king, I went, he's got to be the prince. And we gave him that nickname that day.
No way.
And that's why he's called Prince Lara.
No way. Far out.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And speaking of Lara, is it true your last 2 wickets may or may not have been him?
Mate. Yeah, that was my last test. That was an amazing game as well because Shane bowled the West Indies out in the second innings. He took, Matty, 6 or 7 in the second innings. Shane Warne, 92-3 Boxing Day tests. So it must be 92 Boxing Day tests. Shane, I'd been to Sri Lanka with Shane as well. And he and Greg Matthews won us the first test over there bowling. But that game, when he got 7, I think, in the second innings, I took one of the catches, which was great. But I remember him in the dressing room that night standing next to Alan Border, Shane in the middle, and Shane's dad.
He got 7.
7 for what, 50 something?
7 for 52.
Thank you. And I could see it in his eyes. He really believed that day that he could bowl it. He knew he was good and he knew he had some chops that day. Remember I told you the penny drop at Snape Park for me?
Yeah.
That day at that level, it all just fell into place for him.
Yeah, wow.
And he just went from there.
Last 2 wickets of
the
Brian
last
Lara.
2 wickets. I got picked in that test and I was very happy and I was really bowling really well, even though I was in my twilight years. And I got Brian out a couple of times prior to that and in a couple of one-day games by seaming the ball back into him. If you gave him width as a left-hander and anything inside that on the leg side, it just cannon fodder.
Yeah.
But I had this theory that if you bowled 4th or 5th stump outside his off and pushed it into his pads, he got a little bit jammed up. And he did at that stage. He rectified that later in his career, but this was something. And I said to Bob Simpson, you should get McDermott and Hughes to bowl around the wicket to him and punch it into him because them going across him, he just flays them through the offside. Alan never said to me, we're picking you to try and get Brian out. But as soon as Brian came in, I think he got 50 in one innings and I got him out early in the other. But I had him LBW and then caught short leg. So we'd set up for those dismissals. So my last 2 wickets are Lara and Lara.
I mean, that's something.
Can you believe it?
That's something to write home about. That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you brought up Warnie. Were you his first roomie? Is that true?
That's true. On his first overseas trip, we went to Sri Lanka.
Could you see that greatness? Like I know some people, the greatness is a surprise. I mean, to be honest, probably most of the time, greatness is a surprise. Very, very rarely can you pick greatness. But then sometimes there's great, and they were always going to be great. What was it like with Warnie? Do you think?
we knew he had just the revs he could get on the ball and turn it. Prior to him being selected for Australia, they'd had a under 25 or a youth tour go to Zimbabwe, and they took Steve Waugh and Mark Taylor to look at this group of players. When Tubby and Tugger came back to our camp, New South Wales, they said, oh, man, there's this kid called Warne. I've heard a little bit about him for Victoria. We're going to try and get him up to play here in Sydney to bowl on the SCG because it was a turner. But of course, Warnie, I'm a Victorian, never left. But they said, now Stephen and Tubby, 2 of our great captains, their opinions I take solid.
Yeah.
They went, he's got some chops, this kid, Warne. So then it just sort of filtered out, and then he became, oh man. Mate, I got to tell you, half his wickets he got here and the mouth.
Yeah, wow.
He just intimidated people like Darryl Cullinan from South Africa. As soon as he walked out the gate, no matter what he'd be going, hey, me! Me.
Yeah, wow.
It's Darryl. Get me on. So invariably AB would have to, I'll get rid of an over here, another one down there, and then Shane would come on, and Daryl would be 5 not out. And you'd see Daryl, he's got me out 500 times already.
Yeah.
And Shane would go out, and you just see Daryl walk off. And he could play. He was a wonderful player, Daryl Cullen. But Shane just
got into him,
pulled his mind apart.
Yeah.
And he did that to so many people.
Yeah, wow.
Because he'd say, I heard him say sometimes, I'm going to buy you the leggy, then the toppy, and then the one that shoots on, and you're going to miss that. And you go, what? Leggy, toppy, and then this one short, so the bloke's gone back to cut it, but it's Zura, LBW. All right, he said, I told you, go and have a shower.
Oh, mate, that's going to get in your head. That's going to get in your head. Yeah.
To be able to do that and nominate, not many people can do that, but he was just, and his brain about the game, he could fold it out like this and look, it's such a weird game. It's a game of chess played with 22 guys over 5 days that has massive calculations of time, mathematical angles, who's bowling from that end, what's the condition of the wicket, is it hot today, is it windy, is it going to turn, is it this, is it, all the time. Well, Shane would punch it all in, and then it had just come out, and most of the time it was good. It was really good.
Because you knew Shane the man.
Yeah.
But the country...
Hilarious.
The country fell in love with Shane Warne, the idea. And I'd love to know, like, what do you reckon it was about Shane as the man that we all love so much? You know, because it doesn't matter whether you're a rugby league fan or whatever, everyone just loves Warnie. Everyone loves Warnie. And yet some of the stuff he did, most blokes would never get away with.
100%.
Like, but we just loved him.
100%. I think that was part of the factor, you know. He had a durry and then went off the durries, then got caught durrying in the toilet in New Zealand, and some kids saw him, so he gave that kid a blob full, all that. Typical Australian, you know, and then, you know, as his career, and look, his career pretty much coincided in a little bit of a way with the arrival of social media and all that stuff. Just got bigger and bigger and bigger. He was so funny. I roomed with him in Sri Lanka. AB grabbed me at the airport and said, besides me, you're the next oldest. I said, oh, thanks for that. He said, you're going to room with Shane. Just tell him what he needs to know. So for the first week in Colombo, before we went up to Kandy and played a game up there, which was Murali's first match.
No way.
First official game for a Sri Lankan Prime Minister's 11, which was crazy. No one knew what was happening with him. Alan came off at lunch in that game and said, I can't, and Alan was one of the greatest players of spin bowling ever. I can't pick this guy.
Wow.
I don't know whether he's bowling off spin or leg spin, because his elbow was this, and he had this really bizarre wrist. But he was turning him that far. But Shane and I roomed together. When he had the mullet, the baked beans, it was that time, you know, he was overweight.
Yeah, a little chubby.
He was chubby. He hooked up with Errol Alcott, our physio, and Errol loved a wine every night, and Errol loved a durry. So Errol used to have the little finger kick. Next minute, Shane's got the little finger. You know, he's having a durry with Errol. And look, he learnt a lot on that trip about being away with an Australian. And when you're away with a touring side, mate, it's all in. You can't have anybody creating dramas on the side. They need a slap on the head. What are you doing, man? We're in Sri Lanka. Come on. And we were the first team that went there for a number of years. The Kiwis had been there 6 or 7 years ago, and a bomb went off just up the road from their hotel. So everybody was barred. We were the first touring team to go back there. Wow. And the 3-test series was amazing. Shane, with Greg Matthews, helped us win the first test. I think he took 4 for 10 or 4 for 11.
Oh, stop it. Surely he's not going to nail another one.
Mate, this test match at the Singalese Sports Club, the first test of that 91 tour. We were going to lose this game easily. And on the last day, half of Colombo have turned up. They've got the bands going and singing these victory songs. And we went out, and with about 8 wickets in hand and 60 runs to get, we bowled them out.
No way.
Greg Matthews.
On their home turf.
On their home turf.
Like, wow.
It was one of the greatest wins that I've ever played in any game of cricket. But Alan took a chance bringing Shane and Greg Matthews on, and they took like 5 or 6 wickets, bang, 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 bang.
Oh, really?
And I'll never forget Alan. I think Greg was bowling to Aravinda de Silva, who was on 40 or 59. He hit one straight up in the air, and Alan went like this with his cap and his glasses, ripped him off, ran back and took this insane catch over his head, and that was the start of the collapse.
Wow.
So there was 53 runs in hand and 8 wickets to take.
53 runs.
1 by 16.
There you go. And what did Shane?
Warne got 3 for 11.
And what did Mo take?
4.
He took 3
took
for
4.
11, Shane. There you go.
3 for 11, Shane, and Mo took 4.
There you go. And we bowled them out.
Right.
And that's regarded as one of the greatest wins in cricket history. The other thing that's never spoken about there, I've heard Alan Border say, I never won a series in the subcontinent. Well, Sri Lanka counts as a subcontinent. He must have forgot that we won that series 1-0. Those 3 tests were amazing. But that was the start of the coming of Shane. In another country, you know, he was from the suburbs like me in Melbourne. To go to Sri Lanka, this is a whole other world.
Yeah.
But he was always a very affable kid, and they loved him. And we all loved him. And he was just, you know, like a little puppy at that stage. Then he matured, and I'll tell you, this is the mark of the guy that I loved everything about Shane, and he was just, he's one of the greatest to ever play the game. But when I saw him, which wasn't a lot, after we sort of finished up playing, he'd always come over. My nickname's Roy. My middle name's Roy, so I'm Big Roy to them.
Yeah.
He'd go, Roy, I just want to thank you for looking after me in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Rooming with you first. You really taught me. And he didn't have to do that.
Doesn't have to do that. No
and he'd
way.
give me a big hug. Thanks for looking after me, brother. I'll always appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then I'd hear him say to someone else, first time I went to England, you fucking took me there. I really appreciate it. That was just the mark of the guy.
Yeah.
And he understood and he appreciated it.
The heights that he went to remember, the start of everything. A lot of people forget that, the beginning of it.
Remember when what was that girl's name, Maddie, that he was with for a while?
Liz Hurley?
Yeah, Liz Hurley.
Hollywood actress.
So he's living with her in Melbourne, and I catch up with him in Sydney. Oh, this was great. I went like this. Liz Hurley? This is all he did. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
man.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
Roy, yeah. Amazing.
Oh, mate. Now, after your career, I mean, your career is just about to restart almost, a whole nother career. But first of all, the famous Tooheys ad. How did that come about? Like that just, an iconic ad that we'll remember forever. How did it come out?
After that 81 call-up into the team, and in the 6th test, Dirk Wellham debuted for Australia and made 100 on debut. And we'd sort of grown up a little bit together through the cricket, Dirk, and I ended up captaining New South Wales, fine player. When we got back, because we were sponsored by Tooheys, they'd made an ad in the late 70s with Dennis Lilly and Steve Rickson, who was working for Tooheys, Stumper Rickson, our wicketkeeper. They got back and they wanted to make an ad with me and Dirk, the 2 new wonderkins that had debuted in England, and Dirk got 100 on debut. For some reason, Dirk didn't do it. Next minute, the script's written for me and Steve Rickson, and we go to Adelaide, we make half the ad there, and then we made the rest of it in Sydney. It was 1981. That ad was that big, which I had no idea was going to go. People used to come up to me and say, I know you're the actor on that Tooheys ad.
No way.
They didn't even know I played cricket.
No way.
And I'd go, I played a couple of games, mate.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Was going to run for 6 months. It ran for 6 years. And
Unheard of
on
for
the
an ad.
back of that, they made one with Mark Richards surfing and Mark Ella with the rugby and so-and-so, Jimmy, what's his name, and the horses. And it started like a whole series of 10 or 12 of those ads.
No way.
And you're not going to believe this, Denon. This is 1981, right? Yeah. Even today, these days, every now and again, a bloke will walk up and say, how do you feel?
No way.
How do you feel? I get that, and I get from Who Dares Wins, are you going to dare me?
Really?
And I haven't made Who Dares Win since 1998.
Far out. That's
so I get
crazy.
How do you feel? Or are you going to
Are you going to damn me?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Did like the transition into TV? You've got to have I wouldn't say a love for it, not necessarily like you don't have to be some love for acting. However, you've got to enjoy the TV side of things.
Yeah.
Did you know you were going to enjoy it so much after your career? Was there any inkling whilst you were playing that you would, or it just kind of fell in your lap? Like, how does that come about?
Fell in my lap, really.
Yeah.
The TV and the broadcasting of cricket was starting to step up. There was a lot more interviews. I'd been in the commentary when I had a couple of injuries with Richie and Tony Gregg, and that was fantastic. But I never really. I thought of TV as sort of a novel thing to do. After I retired, a guy called Chris Chapman, who played for University of New South Wales, had a blue in cricket and rugby. He was the boss at Channel 7 in Sydney. And I'd done a little bit of stuff for the ABC, which he'd seen. And then he called me. He said, come out to Epping and see me. So I knew Chapo really well. He's a great friend of Jeff Lawson's and all the Uni New South Wales boys. So I went out there and he said, we'd love you to do sport for us. And I went, no, mate, I don't want to do sport. He goes, why not? I said, everybody retires from sport. They go and do sport. He said, what do you want to do? And he had a coat rack in his thing with a couple of coats and a bowler hat on the fucking thing. And I grabbed this bowler hat and went, da, 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 around his office. He said, you're a fucking idiot. But you've got that little glint in your eye, Michael, and we've made 10 episodes of a show called Sydney Weekender. And if you want to learn how to be a host on TV, you can take over hosting this show.
No way.
So I did, and that lasted for 27 years, that show. I just wouldn't let that show go. I did that for 27 years every year.
No way.
But very quickly, Who Dares Wins came along and Gladiators, which were right on the cusp of this new genre, reality TV.
Yeah.
And they were insane shows to make. I mean, you couldn't make them now. Well, you could not do the things Occupational Health and Safety would say. You cannot throw that bloke off a 4-story building into a thing that looks as big as a matchbox down there. You just couldn't do it.
You couldn't do it.
No.
Far out. Did you, when you're in the heat of Who Dares Wins, were you more known than when you played cricket? Or was it close?
Yeah.
Wow.
I couldn't believe that I'd had this 14-year
Worked so hard for it.
First-class career. Played a dozen tests and 38 one-dayers. I played in the World Cup here in Australia in 1992, home World Cup. New South Wales, done really well. Start working in TV, doing Who Dares Wins. There's a couple of dudes go, how old are you, man? I go, I'm 36 at the time. Yeah, and you just started in TV. What did you do before television? And then, you know,
a little bit, just a little
You're
bit.
sort of entitled to blow up, aren't you? But you go, oh, played a bit of cricket. Who for?
The nation.
Well, my club, Randwick, in New South Wales and Australia. And then you see him on the phone and start, we didn't even know you play. So, yeah, if I thought a lot of people knew me from the cricket, no. Who Dares Wins and Gladiators were just nuts.
Crazy.
Like, I couldn't walk down the street there, say Maroubra Junction, or I was living up in Bronte at the time. If I walked down the street with or without my missus or whatever, I'd have some bloke come up and go, I'll do anything on that show, mate. I'm a former SAS soldier.
No way.
Blah, 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 blah. And I'm trying to say, we don't want you on the show, mate.
You and normal people.
We want a bloke who's sitting at home saying he can do any of the dares and his wife writes a letter in.
Yeah.
Because you're going to do it, mate. We don't want. But people didn't some people didn't get that aspect of it. But I would get corralled by 3 or 4 blokes all the time.
What's your most memorable episode or contestant for Who Dares Win?
This is what happened with Who Dares Wins. What was a big deal in year 1? What was a major dare that if that person completed that, they went round the world on a holiday? In year 2, that was now a $50 dare.
No way. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger. Wow.
It had to step up, step up, step up, step up. I remember one day going into the office at North Sydney, because it was made by an outside production company that sold it to Channel 7 and asked, could I host it? Because I'd worked with one of these guys on the ABC and I knew him. So they had a big whiteboard. So I go up and it says, man feeds sharks on Barrier Reef with a metal glove on. So just to there. So I go in and see the blokes around the show, executive producers. I said, up man, feed shark on Barrett. Yeah. And they were English. They were pommies, you know. And one was his father was Sir John Mason, and the other one was from the south of London. So it was this contrast between them. He said, yeah, we're getting a chainmail glove made this long, and he's going to hand feed. I said, what about if the shark bites it off at the fucking elbow?
Oh, fuck.
And they don't know. This is the first time I said this to them. They don't know you. Mason Brand Entertainment. They'll say the guy lost his arm on Mike Whitney's show, Who Dares Wins.
Yeah.
So have we got insurance coverage for all this shit? So as you would expect, the insurance just went out of control.
It's so funny you say that just quickly, like, you know, everything with bloke. When I'm talking to employees, sometimes I'm like, your error, it's not your error. It's then even if it's like something that's like so removed from me, but because I'm the face of
it's your fault.
I did it. I did it.
Yeah.
And it would be even worse for you. Anything that happens on that show, it's essentially you did it pretty much, even though you had nothing to do with it.
There was a couple of moments on the show. One was we dared this guy to ride a motorcycle through a wall of cardboard boxes that were filled with hay. So they set this on fire. Now, this is a normal stunt. But the guy had never ridden a bike before. So for a whole day, they got him on this 250, and mate, in the end, he was driving around the paddock.
Yeah.
So they get him there in the afternoon, say, this is the setup for tomorrow. You've got fully clothed, you can't get burnt, bro.
Yeah.
The only thing you have to watch is if when you burst through the boxes, if any hay or cardboard gets on, just turn your head and it'll blow off.
Yeah.
So he goes, finally we get down the countdown. It's a big setup. There's crane cameras. There's no drones in those days, anything like that. So you're going, so away he goes. Oh, good, he's into third. Bursts through this flaming wall. And, of course, gets a bit on there, shits himself, jumps on clutch and front brake, over the bike.
Oh, no.
He's doing about 50K to... broke his shoulder.
God.
Badly. That was one. There was another one down at Coogee Oval where we had these people on the rollerblades skating up a ramp and trying to jump over a high jump stick and see who could get the highest. And this bird had harassed us all day, wanted to be on camera, and there was just something not right. And I kept saying to the boss, oh, man, there's something not right there. We'd done about 20 people. That was more than enough. This was only going to be 5 or 6 people, so they get lost in the edit suite. She come up to the boss. He said, one more. This girl. Good sort, bikini, skates down. She goes up the ramp, does a backflip, straight up, not over the thing, and lands on the concrete. Bang, straight on the melon. Completely knocked out, like lifeless.
My God.
So this is at Coogee, and I'm living in Maroubra at the time. The boss goes, go.
Yeah.
So by the time I get back to my place at Maroubra, it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes. The helicopters.
Oh, my God.
It's going to be Mike Whitney show, girl, quadriplegic, paraplegic. She was okay. She just banged her head. Now, I went up to visit her in the hospital 2 days later. Walked in with a big bunch of flowers. And the big Hell's Angel bikie was there, her boyfriend. And some other woman who I didn't know, who I found out later was a lawyer, and they just attacked me.
No way.
Mate, I shit myself when I saw the bike. And this was his girlfriend, and this woman's going, you're Mike Whitney, it was your show. And I said, I'm not answering, I just come to hope you're all right.
Yeah. Just wanted to
but I'm a lawyer, you need to answer me. I go, ring Mason Brand Entertainment, mate.
Yeah.
I'm employed by them, or the 7 Network. And walked out quickly, looking around. This bikie was just, they got the nasty look. Some of them bikies, nasty.
Mate.
But they were 2 incidents I remember really well that never went to air, of course. Never got spoken about. But you couldn't make that show now. Some of the things were so... We finally did the shark dive. We did the shark dive. So we go up there 3 days on a boat to get to the outer reef. The outer reef. And we all go diving. And this
3 days on a boat?
Yeah, 2.5 days it was on a boat to get out there. And we're out in the middle of nowhere on the outer reef, and these white tip, grey tip and black tip reef sharks were everywhere. And these things are 6-7 foot long. I mean, and...
How big was the boat that you was on?
Big.
Big boat,
big
okay.
Cruiser.
Thank God. I was going to say, like a small
big cruiser. And they had this square sort of metallic thing where they were putting fish bodies on to rev them up. Mate, once they got into revved up.
Yeah.
It was just, and we're going to send a guy down there after that to hand feed one of these things with a glove on.
Far out.
So I'm sitting down there on scuba watching all this thing, and they're filming. I'm going, oh, just please take the bit of fish and swim away so we can not see this guy get attacked by a rampaging shark, and brings all his mates in, and they just all these thoughts. But we got it done. It was all right. So there were moments standing on that show where I went, and just held the breath. And Tanya and I used to go, far out, this is getting a bit serious. Because you had to up the ante.
Yeah, because it would just get boring
absolutely.
otherwise. Yeah.
Yep.
Far
It was
out.
crazy. It was crazy. First type of show like that ever made in the world.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
So was this before Fear Factor even?
Yep.
I mean,
Fear Factor came from our show. They say that we saw this show, Who Dares Wins in Australia, and we made Fear Factor up off that. Yep.
that's crazy.
Yep.
Because like Fear Factor is where Joe Rogan obviously
100%.
started his career.
100%. Yep.
Wow.
All those shows came after Who Dares Wins.
Wow.
And I said to the guys, how did you come up with the idea? They said they were playing golf at Longreef and said we should create a show where we can dare people for money. So the early pilots that we made up in Bondi Junction were a bowl of sheep's eyeballs and daring people to eat one of them, or a blood milkshake, or for $50.
And then eventually turned into feeding a friggin' shark with a metal hand. Far out.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Mate, next segment brought to you by Menulog. And Menulog is on one of the great bounce backs all time. We got this from the local cafe in Rosemary, and arrived in 20 minutes. But I want to talk to you, mate, about one of the greatest bounce backs in rugby league history. South. Your beloved South.
Yeah.
Walk us through. First of all, how'd you get involved with South? Because I know you beloved growing up. But how'd you actually get involved in it? And then the whole getting them back.
I've said this a few times recently. If you asked me professionally what were the 3 hardest years of my life, that was.
Wow.
Without doubt. I lost a lot. We all lost a lot of sleep over that time. So what happened was South was slowly losing momentum and losing players and losing a bit of gravitas. And Don Lane, the very famous American who had come out here with the Don Lane show, always said that number 14 was the supporter. So he started to get some people together. Ray Martin, Laurie Brereton, a politician, Nick Griner, former premier, Deirdre Gruzovan, Laurie's sister, who was also a politician, Andrew Denton, Mikey Robbins, myself, all these die-hard Rabbitohs people who had profile to try and support the club. So we all got on board with this Group 14. And it got to a stage where the club was going to get punted. But a year before that, they said Group 14 needed a representative on the board, and would I go on the board? This is not my game. This is rugby league. I'm a lover, but I don't know about boardroom politics or how everything works. But because of my love of the Rabbitohs, I said yes. My old man, if he had been alive, it would have blown him away that his son was on the board of directors at the Rabbitohs. He would have not been able to accept that. So very shortly after that, we got kicked out at the end of that season. And very shortly after that, I got asked to be deputy chairman of the board, sitting next to George. So I accepted all those roles. And then we went into hyperdrive to try and save the club. Those first couple of years were very heavy. We didn't have a lot of money. We were raising money at the Red and Green Ball to try and keep things going. We'd lost all our players. We lost the first court case. Then we went again. If it wasn't for Nick Pappas coming in as a supporter and a lawyer saying, I think we have a case in trade practices and another area, restraint of trade. So that's what we went to the court with, and finally we won. Man, just to try and raise... Look, there were so many wonderful people that put their neck on the line, gave money to the cause because of our love of the Rabbitohs. And I stepped down just prior to the last court case ruling. I had a lot of other things coming in. I was getting a bit of pressure from my old cricket club to be on the board there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I couldn't do both.
Yeah,
and I thought that we'd probably done enough now to get over the line. Now, it went to the High Court, 3 judges, 2 voted for us, 1 voted against. We were back in. And then more chaos came. A lot of the guys that were on that board went, and a lot of the old people came back. And a lot of the people who went said, don't tell me it's going to go back to what it was. That's when Russell and Peter Holmes at court came in. There was a big fight there. You know, George and I hadn't seen eye to eye with Andrew and Andrew Denton as well, and George said, I'll step down if Whitney and Denton aren't involved. And I went, good, I'm not involved, I'll go back to cricket.
Yeah.
And then Russell and Peter Holmes at court took over. Peter actually asked me to come round and see him at his house at Centennial Park prior to that. And he was from Western Australia. He didn't know anything about rugby league.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of old board members there and a few lawyers, and we had a long talk about what he should expect. These people are really good people. They'll help you. Not sure about these ones. I mean, that's every association has negatives and positives. But they took the club over at the next AGM, and that sort of, with George and all his people, they didn't want that and they moved away then. And look, George did, he put his houses up sometimes to save that club, his businesses up. He did a lot to save that club. So to see him sort of burr up a bit at the end, I would have loved to embraced it all and said, my job's done, we're back in, go for it. I'm here to support you. But he wouldn't go to any functions, and he really, there was a real rift in there. So it got to 2014 after all of that.
Yeah. Wow.
And we won. We played a grand final, decided the year before. What did we play the year before?
Should have won the year before.
Prelim, that's right. Should have won that year. Anyway, get to 2014. And after we won the grand final, everybody got invited back to South Juniors. That whole Group 14 group was there.
Yeah, wow.
And everybody just said...
And the name it was Group 14?
Yeah.
And you won in 2014?
Number 14, yeah. Well, there you go. I never thought about that. Wow. But all of that Group 14 people, all those people I mentioned, said, and I agreed with them, no matter what hardship I went through during those 3 years, we all went through.
Yeah.
I mean, some people got threatening phone calls from other areas of the community over it. What? Some people got told, if you go with them, you won't be able to do this, this and this anymore. And these are people in the media. Like, these are big, Andrew Denton, Mikey Robbins, Ray Martin, me. We're all in the media then. And got, it was really heavy. There's a lot of...
And when you say phone calls, we're talking pressure from people that didn't want the Rabbitohs in the competition?
Yep.
So from the outside looking in, if people think it was this like clean, everything, it was very underhanded stuff going.
Dirty underneath. Really and luckily South's had some people who knew how to deal with that.
Wow.
Because we come from working class.
I was going to say, like that area.
Mate, you want to throw your fists up in the South Sydney area? Whoever you're doing that to will fight you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So we basically said, bring it on.
Bring
it on. And if you're good enough, you need to be really good because we're still going to be standing here.
Yeah.
And in the end, I think that's what happened. They tried everything to stop us from getting back in the comp.
Yeah.
And now they realise a competition without Souths is not really a full competition.
No.
But back to South Juniors that night. We all got there and the celebration, mate, people cried. I cried in other people's chests that night.
Wow.
Because it was more like a, far out, man. We went through all of that and this is the payoff.
Yeah.
And I'm happy. It was worth it.
Yeah.
Everybody said it was worth it for that moment in the juniors. Sam then hugged me. Got the busted cheek that night. I just went, oh, man, how tough are you, man?
Yeah.
Johnny Sutton come up, who I'd known from a kid down at Maroubra Beach. And he's crying, Widow, we've done it, we've done it. I burst out crying.
Yeah.
And it was just one of the, and it's not my love, but not my sport anymore. But I delved straight into the rugby league world
Far out.
that night. It was just, That's one of the great nights in my life.
When do you reckon the closest you were to defeat when you were trying to get back in?
When we lost the second court case, we'd put so much resources into it. I'd love to remember our QC's name, a legend. If we hadn't have been able to get him, and in the second court case, all the South people would be sitting here, and we had a QC, a Mr. White, Nick Pappas, and our leading QC, who when you hear his name, you know who he is, and maybe one or two dudes running for them. Over here on the News Limited side, 40 people, 12 QCs, 10 lawyers, and 20 dudes running around with boxes of papers just all day fighting against us. That was how unbalanced it was.
It's just from a because I grew up playing soccer, so I don't understand the politics of that generation. It seems so bizarre that there'd be such a push to not have Rabbitohs. Like, what do we lose by having Rabbitohs in the comp? I know it sounds silly to say if you're a diehard rugby league fan that's grown up listening to rugby league from outside, then why fight so hard to not have someone in the comp?
I think I've got an answer for that, and I'll tell you that in a minute. But after we lost the second court case, you've only got one more rung to climb, and this is heavy shit. There's now 3 judges in the High Court.
Yeah,
they look at all the evidence and stuff like that. Did we have the money to go again and do it again and again? People were donating money. We're having a red and green ball every year. No players there. We didn't have any players, just the ex-players who'd turn up.
Yeah.
Like, it was really, 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 really hard. I think it got to that situation because during the Super League days, Souths just went no. And George was really...
It was a vendetta kind of...
I think.
Yeah.
I couldn't say that then, but if I look at it all now, but he was very vocal against Super League. Very, very vocal. And I think a lot of people at the top of the tree didn't like that, but he was speaking up for all of the clubs that didn't want to go the Super League way. And I think there were a few people that might have earmarked him for that.
Yeah.
But George is just George. You put George there and say, George, we need to fight for this.
Yeah,
he's up for it, George.
Great in wartime kind of thing.
And this is South was his great passion. He was one of our legends, and he just could not believe that the club was going to go down the gurgler. So I think that and his loud voice over Super League, there were still some of those people involved. When Super League finished, they got together.
Some of the most powerful people in the country.
Huge, powerful people. And I think they not only wanted to have a bit of a go back at George, but he was the chairman of South, and if they go down the gurgler because of that, bad luck. Yeah. But now we know, everybody says, how can you have a competition without the Rabbitohs? Yeah. What were they thinking?
Yeah. As I said, it seems so bizarre that, like, wouldn't you just be like, look, if they can afford to be back in, just put them back in. It's like very simple answer, yes or no, especially with the heritage that they obviously have as a club. When did you, so that was the darkest time when you lost it. When did you start to believe we might have done this, do you reckon? What was the moment, do you think?
Just prior to that last ruling where we won, going into that court case, it just seemed like even the people who were talking the Rabbitohs down to me, people who barrack for other clubs, were starting to say, geez, he's fought hard, mate, you probably... should be back in. It was just turning this opinion. The papers started to write more favourable comments about Souths, going, well, yeah, one of the foundation clubs, won the most first-grade premierships. They probably should be in the competition. So it was just starting to sway and turn, and I could feel that. That didn't guarantee that we were going to win that last court case, but we did. And the joyous celebrations over at South's Leagues Club at Redfern that day were just insane. George got up. I was at work actually, and I snuck over there for an hour, right up the back, and kissed a few people. But George got up on stage. I mean, that was like the king had arrived. And it was just this amazing celebrations. And then, of course, you've got to start recruiting players and trying to get a team together for the next year, and you've got no one on contract. So that was tough. And what we had to do was, as you said, Melbourne had to pull all players that clubs didn't want. We sort of had to do that for the first couple of years.
Right. And you played a decisive role in getting fellow life member Kerry Stokes.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Oh, man. Right. We're in the middle of the second court case, and the judge says, I'm going to suspend the case now. I've had a look at my notes over the weekend. You have no money. You have no sponsors. You have nothing. You have a shell of a club, and if I rule in your favour, you can't actually operate. So I'm going to ask you and give you 2 weeks to get $10 million in sponsorship on affidavit saying that if you get the ruling and you're back in, all these sponsors click into gear.
10 million?
So we're in the courtroom. We haven't got any team, no players. What are we going to say?
What are we sponsoring? I'm
going to come to you, Denon, and say, have you got $2 million? And you're going to go, what am I going to get for me $2 million, widow? Say, trust me.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
So a week goes by, about 10 days go by. We've got $5 million. South supporters, generous people, whatever. We're not going to get the 10. So I've got about 2 days to go. Denton rings me up. He's got the Denton Show on Channel 7, and I've been there a few years at this stage. I've been there 5 or 6 years at this stage. And I'd met Kerry Stokes a few times. Lovely man, Kerry. Really like Kerry. He goes, I've got an idea to get the extra $5 million, widow. I go, what's that, Andrew? We need to ask Kerry Stokes. I went, fucking come on, we work for him, man, and he's from Western Australia. He wouldn't even know fucking rugby league, what he wouldn't know.
Yeah.
You've got to ring him. Then he hung the phone up. I rang him back. I went, Andrew, he said, you've got to ring him. You know him better than me. Ring him today. To ring Kerry Stokes or Kerry Packer, this is like trying to ring the Prime Minister.
Yeah. You
cannot get onto these people, but I had his secretary's number. Hello, Kerry Stokes. Hi, Julia, it's Mike Whitney. Oh, hi, Mike. How are you? Good, good. I'm just wondering. Yeah, we're in Sydney, actually. Oh. And Kerry's in the office and he's available. Oh, I've just won the lottery twice. He's available and they're in Sydney. Hi, Kerry. Yeah, good day, Michael. Mate, you know much about rugby league? Not really. I said, Andrew, myself, and a lawyer called Nick Pappas want to come and speak to you tonight about South Sydney Rugby League. Oh, you're in court or something, are you? Yeah. Well, I own the building in number 1 Bridge Street, and I'll be on the 32nd floor in my penthouse. You come at 6 and tell them to come at 7. So I arrive and we go up. Unbelievable joint overlooking the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House. He owns the building. So I started telling him a little bit about the history of South. And then Andrew and Nick came. So then Andrew followed up with the whole history. Then Nick said, this is where we are legally. And we need $5 million. Then he handed it to me. So I'm saying we need this $5 million. He was drinking then and smoking. He had this Scotch and ice. He took a big drag on the ciggy, blew that out, then a swig of the Scotch and ice and said, I think I can help you.
Oh, no way.
Well, the three of our jaws just hit the deck. And then he said, I've just got to decide what company the money comes out of, because he owned Caterpillar in Australia, which we didn't know. He owned 20 different things that I had, no one had any idea. And of course, in the court case, they can ask, are all these companies viable? Because we need to know that they've got the money.
Yeah.
So this could have exposed everything that he had that they mightn't have known about.
Yeah,
Other areas that he mightn't have.
And the press knows about it, and then like blah, blah, blah,
So
blah.
he said, my QC will ring you tomorrow, Michael. You need to have a discussion with him. So the next day his QC rings me from Perth. We talk through. And when we put this $10 million up in affidavit, they're going to look at who has given us the money.
Yeah.
And they're going to want to cross-examine that person. So they wanted to cross-examine Mr. Stokes.
Yeah, which is time. It's
And he said, no, you're going to represent me, Michael, and talk on my behalf. So the next day we turn up at Macquarie Street and I get summoned up. I'd already been up for an hour before that, a couple of weeks before, and it's heavy. And when I got up the front, and I'd already signed in previously, they then argued for 40 minutes about is Whitney worth cross-examining. And then our guys would parry what they say. And in the end, one of their QCs got up, can't remember, he said, "Let Mr. Whitney go. We don't really..." After 45 minutes, mate, and I'm in the dock watching this go in front of me.
Far out.
Just to question me over, has Kerry Stokes got the money? Which everybody knew that he had, but they wanted to expose him.
Yeah.
So we got the money and we continued on. And then we lost the court case, the second court case.
Oh.
We lost it after all of that. And then we moved on into that last court case.
Far out.
But we got the money out of Kerry. He was very, very, very generous. He really didn't know. He was really doing it for me and Andrew.
Favour, really, when you think, because he wouldn't have known the history or anything.
Yeah. And when I finished up at Channel 7 a couple of years ago, he rang me and thanked me for my 27 years of service. And I, of course, thanked him for helping us with it. No, mate, I'm a life member at the Rabbitohs now. I really, really respect that.
Yeah.
But just a cool dude who just carries Kerry. Like, a lot of people don't even know what he looks like.
Yeah.
And how big he is with his invest. But he's just a cool dude, and he knew we needed help. He's from Western Australia, Aussie rules. I mean, it was the most foreign thing we could have asked him to do. And he went, yep, no dramas. So how do I feel about him and Channel 7? Look, I spent 27 years there and I had to finish up to get my knees done. But if Channel 7 rang me up now, mate, I'd say, yeah, I'll do something for you because Kerry is just fantastic. I loved working there.
Yeah.
And if they said, can you come and do this for Kerry? I'd be there tomorrow for Kerry.
Yeah.
Just a really cool dude who did us favours and didn't have to do that. So enormous respect, mate.
And I guess with Kerry, like the reason they get successful is because they don't give away money stupidly. Do you know what I mean? So for him, it's not just a matter of like, oh yeah, I'm super wealthy. I just they do the opposite of it. They go, hang on a sec, I don't give money away to mugs.
Do you know what he did? But he signed a 3-year deal.
Oh, far out. Without a team, no team.
Unbelievable.
Wow, what a show of faith.
And at the time, you think, oh, wow. When I talk about it now and think about that now, like, what?
Yeah.
He was putting the old fella on the line.
Oh,
there.
mate.
Got it chopped off easy.
Absolutely.
Just fantastic, mate. And,
wow.
and I know Andrew feels the same, Andrew Denton. We'll always be indebted a bit to Kerry.
Yep.
Fantastic.
And you were inducted as a life member in 2009, the Rabbitohs?
Yeah.
I mean, as a young fella, being in a Rabbitohs, tragic to be considered a life member. I'm sure that would have meant a lot to you.
I took my mother along to the Redfern Town Hall where that happened. Oh, mate, I cried. I just cried and cried. I just couldn't believe it. It's not my... I've always loved the game. Cricket's my thing.
Yeah.
You get a life membership for your club or whatever.
Yep.
I understand that this was... Look, I'm misty enough
Yeah,
thinking about
you
it,
can
mate.
see
It's
how much
very,
it means.
very, very emotional. And my mum passed away a few years ago, but I've got this photo of my mum and I and my little life membership thing of mum and I together. It's one of my favourite photos. She was just so stoked and blown out to be in the old Redfern Town Hall where they have the AGM.
Yeah.
It was just magical. It was a magic day, yeah.
Far out.
Very, very humbling and proud.
And imagine your old man, he wouldn't have been able to
I reckon he
believe it.
did 10 flips in the graveside that day, mate, for sure.
Oh, mate. And like today, now, you've actually got your own podcast now.
Yeah.
Mate, first of all, because like when you're, in, mainstream or TV or network, like I guess what makes you decide to go to a podcast? Because a podcast is a new thing. It's foreign. It's different. And yet you seem to have, like a duck to water, like you love it. How did it start? What's it about? How does the audience listen to it? And what's the future hold for you?
A few of my mates said a couple of years ago, let's do a podcast. My instant retort was, there's 10,000 podcasts out there. You need an edge.
Yeah.
So before I knew it, they bought all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe how small and compact that is. Like, you can pack that in that and take the podcast anywhere you want to. So we mucked around on it, got an SD card, had it in this room at a mate's place where he's got a lot of albums in this room, and it sort of deadened the sound down. It sounded like a studio. So then I said, we've got to have an edge. Now, bloke in a bar, it's really good because that's what we talked about. We said, if we have guests, it's like we're having a cup of coffee in a coffee shop down in the corner.
Yeah.
No holds barred. And whatever we tape, we send them the full thing, and if they want something cut out between that time, we'll cut that out.
Yeah.
Then we'll send you the edited version. If you're happy, we'll put it on air. Or there's 4 of us having a schooner in a pub. That's how we need to have it. So from day one, that's how we've had it, and we've not, like, we had Angry Anderson on. I'm not going to say the C word. He must have said the C word. It's just part of his F and C. He was an F and C. This is angry. So we sent that to him. He went, no.
All good.
I can leave all that shit. Because that's angry and no dramas. So there's no holds barred on ours, which is pretty much the same as yours. And if there's anything really untoward, like, that's out.
Yeah.
But this is what I've realised. Everyone's got a story. And it's half of them have got stories that you don't know about. We've had a lot of musicians on because this podcast is with 2 musos that I play in a band with. So we've had Rick Grossman. Who knows Rick Grossman, the bass player? Rick Grossman was with Matt Finish, the Divinals, and now the Hoodoo Gurus. He's the only bloke to be inducted 3 times into the ARIA Hall of Fame with 3 different bands.
Far out.
And I played with Rick, and he's a great guy. We've just had John Brewster from the Angels on. They're on their 50th anniversary tour around Australia. And one of the original guys that I played with in a band 20 years ago is now the lead singer and guitarist. And before that, he drummed for 10 years with them. So this is Nick Norton, who's helped write half the songs on this new album. So we've got all these musical connections through the boys. And now I've been gigging with the band for 20 years. And all of my cricket connections. And we wanted to do some different people. So we've done Len Pascoe. Oh, Len's just a legend. And his whole take on things is very different. My hero was Doug Walters. We're doing him next week.
No way.
I'm going to be in the room with my all-time hero.
No way.
And I played with him, and I've known him since I was 19.
Yeah.
But it's still my hero.
Yeah, and you get to sit down and fully have a
talk
yarn
about his life,
Yeah.
which I know a lot about it, but this is Doug Walters, and I don't know whether he's ever done a podcast before.
Yeah.
So
I love the name. How's that?
how's that, the
Love that.
podcast? And
Love
did you
that.
see the afro?
Yeah.
Got the afro over there.
So good. So good.
Look, I'll tell you when it really got me was last year we decided to go and watch the Rabbits in Vegas. And the guys, they're going with these guys, and they go, we'll take the podcast over. And they just packed it in a little bag, like I said, and we took it over, and we got hooked up with Junior Pearce over there, who also plays in the band.
Yeah.
And he got us all these people, including Peter Beattie, former Premier of Queensland, who's now a commissioner in the Rugby League.
Crazy.
And we got him sitting there in Vegas, and we did half a dozen. We called the Vegas Taste. We're going back again this year.
Yep.
After Vegas, I went, yeah, this is...
I get it.
I get it now.
Yeah.
I really get it. I understand it. If we go this way, this will be sort of our little way of doing it, where everybody's got their own different thing. They've just got a bit of merchandise. We're going to have a cap and a shirt and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And look, to be honest with you, then and I wasn't a fan at first. At 10,000 podcasts, what are we going to do? But now I get it.
Yeah.
And I think this is the way of the world. And, there's podcast hubs now where you can hook up with those people.
Yeah.
If you've got enough numbers, it's all about the numbers.
Yeah.
Be part of that hub and get a little earner there and go out and get your own sponsors.
Yeah.
So we're at that stage now after sort of 18 months of frothing around and getting a few listeners and people being aware. And we've done virtually no advertising at all.
Yeah.
So we're just about to move into that. After we get back from Vegas,
Yep.
which is end of Feb, early March, we then sit down and really start to look at like what you guys have done.
Yeah. No, it's exciting. It's exciting. And
It's really exciting.
Yeah. And I think that what I like about podcasts, you could have known a bloke for your whole life, but have you ever actually sat down and said, mate, just tell me about your life story?
100.
You probably haven't.
Everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
Even the bloke who's picking your garbage up.
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
And we're going to do that one day. We've decided they're just going to go out and say, listen, mate, if you got half an hour,
Here's
just
your
come
story.
into this thing, and we just want to talk about your life.
Yeah.
And with a bit of luck, they go, "Oh, Mike, yeah, I'll do that." So
Yeah.
that's the bonus of having a melon like mine. We go in, and you don't know, this guy could have played under 16 soccer for Australia and then broke a toe and could never. You just don't know. Everybody's got a story.
Yeah, that's something that when I was first starting is like that. It's so interesting that the fact that the person that you least think has the craziest story could
Has
have
got
the
it.
craziest
Yeah, I know.
story. It's
I
just
know.
so incredible, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You've lived 3 or 4 lives. You've lived, and
Am I looking okay or a bit tired?
mate, looking fine. We didn't even talk about the band that you were in, like some of the people that you've sung with, and had, like, I guess jammed with would be the word.
Guru Grove,
Mate, it's just
unbelievable. And
incredible.
again, when the Guru, because he's about my age, so I watched the Guru, and what a legend. Next minute he's playing and singing, Spud Carroll.
Yeah.
Spud's just Spud. Still just like Spud, but playing really well.
Yep.
Singing really well. We've gigged with Steve Balby, who was the bass player in Noiseworks,
Yep.
wrote most of their songs. We're good
Junior
friends
Pierce
with
as well. You do some
Junior. We've got the band, so the band can play on their own. The band can play with Junior, or with me, or with both of us. So there's like 4 setups for the
Yeah,
band now.
that's
And
sick.
if I'm not available when Junior is,
Yeah.
he goes and sings and he plays guitar.
That's so good.
Oh, it's hilarious, mate. And
That's so
Junior's
good.
Look, I get up there and have a bit of fun. And my sister and I have always sung, and she's actually got the voice. But we sung the Beatles and all that when we were growing up. Fantastic. I love getting out there, but Junior's like he's playing football. He's so fucking serious. He's got the strings on his guitar and
Yeah.
ding, 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 ding. And then a bit of vocal warm-ups and because we're not operatic singers, we've got to sing songs that are in our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Some of the songs Junior picks, again, that's a really weird. Oh, but I can sing it. Okay, right here. So it's very fun.
Mate. And as I said, thank you so much for coming on and make sure to subscribe to How's That.
How's that the podcast? Because we go, if you listen, the very first thing we do is, how's
Oh,
that?
that's so good. So good, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate
Dan,
it.
my pleasure, mate. And congratulations what you've done here. But I just
Thank
want
you.
to add that Matty the Water Boy
Yeah, Matty the Water Boy.
grew up with my son, and I haven't seen Matt for a long time, and I'm just shocked, Matty, that you're as old as you are now and that you're doing what you love. So happy to be here, mate. Lovely to see you. And Denon, thanks very much, mate.
Thank
my
you.
pleasure.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.